I guess we'll go live with this comment to start. Holy cow. Thanks to everybody for joining this evening. This is going to be a fun one. I think this is going to be an entertaining stream to say the least. But yeah, this one kind of illustrates the sentiment this evening right out of the gates. Shane Pye, the comment saying, since the Bloc have openly stated that an independent Quebec is their goal and to hell with the rest of the country, rest of Canada, we should hold a referendum on whether, on if we should allow Quebec to remain. I think this is going to be a big part of the conversation here, and something that I got going on before. Hey, chat, come on in, chat. There you are. Welcome, and yes, it is the live chat. So, welcome everybody to this evening's live stream. This one's gonna be one of those interesting ones. We're gonna have some fun with this. We're gonna explore some ideas because, well, you know what? Things aren't working out in the way that they're meant to be working out. They're working out in some people's favor and not in other people's favors. And hey, it would be of everybody's interest if everybody got their way, or at least as much as they possibly could. This isn't going to be a bash on one side stream, even though some people are anticipating that and maybe even hoping for that. I'm not gonna play that game. No. Okay, frozen Canadian. Thanks for jumping in there with all the froggies. Let's not do too many walls in the chat. Let's keep this going full of conversation. Divide and conquer tactics working fine. I see. No. This isn't what this is going to be about. Nah, it might surprise some people. Trish Prue with the 279 super chat right out of the gates. Hit that like button, everybody. It absolutely helps. It's a great thing to contribute if you want to help contribute to the channel. Keep greasing that wheel. It helps out a whole ton, and I really appreciate that. I absolutely do. Thank you so much, Trish Prue. The super chats always help as well. Thank you very much. Hello and good evening, Canadian Spider-Man. Welcome to the show. Welcome into the chat. Really appreciate you coming all the way from New York. I guess would a Spider-Man in real life actually live in New York? That's a really good question. Or would he have moved out of New York, maybe somewhere else? Well, we'll see. Well, I mean, that's fiction, but we'll see what's happening here in Canada, and especially the sentiment tonight. We're gonna be getting into a lot of this stuff moving forward. But hey, I want to say other ways you can help support the channel. It is really good. I know people have been bugging for merch forever. Tried doing a bit of merch thing, but just started launching this. We launched the store recently. Let me pop this out here. You could go over, and we decided, why would you just make textiles and things like that when we can make delicious tasting coffee? You guys always start your morning watching a video on this channel, having a cup of joe. Why not have a cup of joe with me? I'm always having a cup of joe. So yeah, this is actually locally roasted coffee from Vancouver, BC. And let me tell you, like-minded as well. You're not supporting some lefty unbeknownst to you. No, this is family operated. Well, good friend of mine putting this together, so making some coffee. If you're going to help support the channel, why not get something in return? Have yourself a cup of joe with Clyde Brew Something coffee over on the link. The link is in the description, right at the top of the description. Go check that out. Get yourself some coffee. While you're at it, you can get one of those nice new wobbly pop t-shirts. This is a new one that we just brought on, and it's a limited time only, so get it while it's hot. It'll only be there for a short amount of time. But let's get back to the chat. Come on in here. Easy Joe with a $2 super chat saying, VTuber I know reacted to the water gun Desperado. Is it the water gun thing? Are you talking about the story where the woman was arrested for incidentally shooting the neighbor with a water gun? I did hear that story. I was like, do I make a video about this? I only have so much time in a day to put videos together, and there's so much happening. I'm missing a lot of other stories because I'll focus on one story. Easy Joe saying yes, that's the one. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, what do you even say to that? woman arrested for, and the police actually came out for that. The police actually came, and on the news article, they said, like, and the police, the response from the police was, or from other people to the police was, really? You've got nothing better to do with your time? In fact, police all over Canada do have better things to do with their time, but somehow they were wasting their time with that particular scenario. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that's what they waste their time with. Some of them use their time a little bit more, let's say, wisely. This might be one of those cases. Before we get to that, we got a super chat from the Mad Girls Club for $5. Thank you so much. Have you heard of Cullen McDonald, Canadian man being charged criminally for protesting in 2021, appeal on October 11th in Wheeland, Ontario? Very serious case. I'll look into that. Somebody else was tweeting at me just before I went live, and I saved that tweet. So I will have a look at that and see what that story's about. I'm unfamiliar with that as of yet, but thank you so much, the Mad Girls Club, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Mr. Roscoe Pico with a $5 super chat. I always remember my grandfather, my dad saying, why does the rest of Canada get to vote out? Oh, why? Sorry. And him saying, when does the rest of Canada get to vote out Quebec? We pay for a welfare program called Quebec. Well, we'll be getting into that tonight. We'll absolutely be talking about this, because this is largely the question that's come up, and why I want to address this, because it is a big thing. But before we get into that, I was just gonna mention about the police and some of the things they have been doing. There was a case, a really nasty car theft that took place, and this one was actually solved. But we'll see. Have a look at this video here. Actually, I'm gonna pop it up instead over here, where you can see it a little bit better. Yeah, maybe that's a little better. Here we go.
Hey everyone, Officer Ty here. Do you remember her? The suspect wanted in the Brazen auto theft in Mississauga? Well, I'm pleased to announce she's now in custody. 18-year-old Sarah Batshaw was arrested and has been charged with dangerous operation caused bodily harm, failed to remain in an accident resulting in bodily harm, theft of motor vehicle, and driving with no license. She remains in custody, and she's also facing charges from other GTA area police agencies. On behalf of the entire PRP team here, we want to thank each and every one of you that took the time to share our video and make it go viral. As a result, we received numerous tips from the public that helped us identify her quickly. She's also linked to a few fraud investigations here in the region of Peel. This type of community support, invaluable to us. We can't do it without you, and as you can see, it yields tremendous results. If you want to read more about this investigation, including a list of charges, click the link that's attached. Thanks again, and take care. Hey everyone.
Yeah, so, and of course, the CCFR tweeting this one out, saying, but will she stay in jail? And that is the question. Not sure if she will. Now, that's a scary case. It looks like she went in posing as someone who was going to purchase a vehicle, and then ran the guy over, and then took off with the car. This is the kind of stuff that's happening here in Canada. Yeah, probably out in 8 hours. Yeah. I mean, yeah, with the way things are going here in Canada today, I really wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, but yeah, she's still in custody. At this point, we'll see what happens with that. Nonetheless, anyway, let's get back to it. Bring the chat back in here. Gonna have some great guests tonight. We're gonna be talking about this. Well, let's just preface this out. Let's start with how did this conversation even get going today? Well, it got going on Twitter, and that's why I was like, okay, this is what we're going to be talking about today, because once it gets going and you get it on your mind, it's like, forget it. This is now what we're talking about. Okay, so over on Twitter. This video came out, and I could share this video with you guys because it's just so utterly, I mean, it's distractingly annoying to hear the discourse of what's actually happening in Ottawa right now. But let me just share this video with you guys.
What are you getting from the government for propping them up? What are you getting from the government in exchange for propping them up?
I'm propping nobody up. This is.
You're by not voting for Mr.
If you
Poilievre's
want me to
motion.
answer, you will let me answer.
Okay.
OK. I'm propping nobody up. Et en français aussi, là, soutenir les libéraux. Je ne soutiens pas les libéraux, je vote contre les conservateurs et je ne soutiens toujours et exclusivement que les intérêts des Québécois. I never support liberals. Help me God. I go against the conservatives on a vote that is only about Pierre Poilievre and his huge ambition for himself. I support the interests of Quebecers, if those interests are also good for Canadians. So far, so good. And I also support the idea of independence for Quebec.
Yeah. So this is what made me say this. It turns out, hey, guess what, guys? I've come out and I am now also a Quebec separatist. I guess I'm gonna have to agree with Yves Francois Blanchett here. I also support Quebec independence. Let's make it happen. Now he's talking about Pierre Poilievre's ambitions for himself. Now, maybe not so much for himself. If you look across Canada here, and we're looking across, every province in Canada is going to be voting for the Conservatives in the next election. This is where the polling is, with the one ridiculously massive exception here. And this is where it makes me just realize how different things are. And I'm not being divisive here. I'm not trying to be divisive. Canada's divided. Canada is divided, but it's divided in one place and one place only. And that's in Quebec. And it's amazing to me that a majority look like they're voting for the Separatist Party, the people who want to separate from Canada. That's correct. Which Blanchett just stated right there. Next up is the Liberal Party with 24 seats in Quebec they're projected to get, and then the Conservatives, and then other people. So the Conservatives are running third, where they're first everywhere else in the country. And this really made me start thinking. And we've been divided since the 80s, right? Yeah, we have been. And this made me think, is this irreparable, or is it repairable? Is this something, and don't get me wrong, I don't think that we should have a big bad breakup or something like that. Now, if you go to the provincial politics, the Bloc is third. I don't know why the Bloc even runs in provincial politics. I mean, it's a federal party. Should it be allowed as a federal party? These are the questions that we're going to get into with the panel that we have tonight, and this is going to be an entertaining one because we have Marty up north coming in. We also have Bryce Wade coming in. He's going to give his 2 cents here. And then we also have Twos from 222-minute podcast. That's going to be great. Giving a bit of a perspective, different perspectives on this whole thing. Perhaps on a future show, we'll bring in other people that are maybe of the Quebec side of this whole equation. Now, interestingly enough, as we're going to be talking about this, I'm actually of the position of the Quebec separatists at this point. I actually think that they should go ahead and go. I'm not saying this in some facetious way. I really am not trying to say this in some sort of facetious way. I genuinely believe that, and let's have a look here. So again, we have what I tweeted out. I also support Quebec independence, which I do. Now, I put this one out there because this makes a lot of sense. If you were in a relationship with someone that only cared about themselves, had double standards about appropriate language, mooched, and constantly threatened to leave, the only good advice would be to let them go. In fact, it would be wise to encourage them to leave. This is the kind of situation. Run a poll, Clyde. Okay. All right. So I'll run a poll. I'll run a poll in the chat here. How do I even get that going? What do I do to run a poll? This is why I need mods. Mods that can run a poll in the chat. I gotta do that. I gotta get that going. GBP with a $5 super chat says Quebec stopped wanting to separate when they realized they could control the country. They have also infiltrated the other political parties. That's an interesting take. I wanna bring that up with the poll or with the panel tonight as they come in, because I think this is going to be higher mods. I have mods. Are they in the chat right now? G, you're in the chat. Can you get a poll going? Are you able to? We'll see if you can get one going here. But this still remains. Okay, so yes, if you were in a relationship with somebody that cared about only themselves, had double standards about appropriate language, mooched and constantly threatened to leave, the only good advice, and this would be the advice from a therapist or what have you, they would say, yeah, get out of that. Get out of that. No, sorry, need permissions. Okay, I'll have to work on that. I'll get that going once the guests come in, because then I'll have a bit of time to do that. In fact, it would be wise to encourage them to leave. Now, I actually think, and I got into this more on YouTube, and I'll pull that up. Actually, over on YouTube, because I posted this in the YouTube communities tab. I don't know if you guys ever follow that communities tab. It's a great feature, by the way, over on YouTube. Here on YouTube, where you can it's kind of like a Twitter feed, but just with the channel. I wish they made a feature where people could post differently, but yeah, you can only reply in the communities tab, and a lot of people are replying in this particular one, which is quite interesting here. This is great because I love the dialogue. I think it's fantastic. You get into the comments here, and the interest of Quebecers. So this is why I brought this in. I said that same sentiment there, brought it in, and immediately the conversation got going. It was great. Easy Joe with a $2 super chat says, "Remember the pipeline that Quebec blocked?" Yes. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of things that would be good for other people in the country that get stymied by this one province, and I don't believe it needs to be that way. I think they can do well, and we could be friends. I think just sharing a government is always going to lead to these conflicts, and this is me actually trying to mend the relationship between Quebec and the rest of Canada. It may sound like a weird roundabout way, but I think that the relationship would improve if Quebec was its own state, if it was its own political entity, its own thing altogether. And in fact, when it comes to the federal government, I do believe that the provinces should be all of their own entities. I think if we came together in a union, it should be a different deal, absolutely, altogether. Never going to happen, Clyde. Well, we'll see. Because I never thought that the government would start talking about immigration, how bad that is. But here we are. They're talking about it. And it's largely because of the attention that a lot of us online have been talking about. So anyway, resident we evil 2077, what a handle, brought this question, or just making this this statement on this. It says, I listened to many Reddit stories on site about such relationships. All of them with the exact same advice and outcome: end it. It's time we encourage Quebec to leave Dominion and let them experience being an independent nation state. They'll quickly realize that they've made a grave mistake since they actually need Canada. Canada does not need Quebec. Now, I brought a little bit of different sentiment to this conversation by saying I'm not necessarily thinking that this would be a bad thing for Quebec. I think it would take some adjustment, but once they utilize their own resources and get to work, they could be a great trading partner for the rest of us. For example, if they were to take their energy to market, prices would go down for all of us. That's a win-win, in my opinion. We'll all be better off if Quebec is their own state, independent of Canada. I genuinely believe this. I think so. Now, would it be a sweet deal for Quebec? Probably not. But they would fare well. I think they would fare pretty good, in fact, in my opinion. And so would the rest of us. And then there would be no contention. There would be no contention of saying that, Quebec, did this and that, and we could scapegoat Quebec. No, there would be no option to do that. And the people in Quebec would be like, leave us out of it. We're our own place. We should be able to make up our own decisions. And yeah, fair enough. I think that could be a good move stepping forward. Now, just the plot keeps thickening, and it's amazing to me. Now, the NDP, they joined the bloc in not supporting Conservatives' attempt to trigger a federal election. Surprised? Are you surprised about that? I'm not. I don't think any of us should be. But what was a bit surprising was this move. And Marty up north put this out on Twitter. He said, another twist: Quebec Premier calls on Bloc Québécois to help topple Trudeau government. Prime Minister Trudeau continues to disrespect the will of the province. I don't see that coming. Is that the will of the province? Well, we'll find out, because we've got many different sentiment going on all at the same time here, all over the place. But I think it's a great time to start bringing in some of these panel members to join us on the show today, because I think this conversation is going to get quite interesting. And I'll take breaks for people's comments in the chat. I really want this to be an interactive one, because it's going to get heated. I guarantee that. But I think there's going to be some good ideas that come out of this. And it could be a lot of fun. And of course, to add to the stage first, you guys all know him. He's here every week. We do this quite often. And, both of us I think are on quite the same page as this. I've just come further over just today. I think my realization today I think I've had an epiphany. But anyway, welcome to the show, Marty up north. Thanks for joining me, my man.
Hey, Clyde, how's it going?
Good. This
Good.
is gonna be a fun one.
In case we have some French viewers, I put down in the bottom of the screen there, I can have my name as Marty up north, but I also put the French translation there just to be.
Oh, shut up! Just to be cheeky. That's so funny. Let me get that in there. How do I put those in there? Oh, I gotta.
Don't know it's Martin du Nord. Eh? Sounds so nice, eh? That's one thing about the French language.
There you go.
They can make shit sound good.
Martin du Nord. That's one way to do it. Yeah. But yeah, well, so far, what's your take on
that last little bit that you put on was interesting. My last tweet there, my quote, right? So basically, now that was a weird twist at the end, because yes, you have the Bloc the Bloc claims to represent Quebecers, and then the Premier of Quebec said, well, I represent Quebecers, and we want you to defeat the government. So now we have two leaders arguing. Like, that's Canadian politics, right? Like, hey, I represent Quebecers. No, you don't. I do. No, I don't. You do. Like, no. What was the question?
Well, okay, so for all intents and purposes, so that gets brought up, the provincial thing versus the federal thing. So I just want to put this on the thing right now. So I brought this up earlier. All the provinces polling is showing federally support to the Conservatives. All the provinces, with the exception of Quebec, where the Conservatives are third. And the Bloc Québécois is number one with the most amount of seats, and then the Liberals.
Yeah.
So like, there's a complete disconnect in that.
I wouldn't say it's a disconnect. If the Bloc Québécois didn't exist, then I would think that Quebec would look like the rest of the country. They're done with the Liberals. So Quebec, if they didn't have the Bloc Québécois, would probably have Conservatives. I mean, the Bloc Québécois is a little is progressive, but they're definitely not liberals. So
yeah, but okay, now say that provincially. Now provincially.
Oh yeah, provincially, that's a whole other thing.
Well, provincially, now what's his name? The premier.
The premier Couillard or the.
We were just talking about him, saying that he wants.
The premier of Quebec. Sorry, I was thinking Blanchette. No, the premier of Quebec is
Francois Legault.
Francois Legault, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So he says that it's the will of Quebec is on his side, but provincially they're polling terribly. They're polling third. Well, sorry. Well, is he conservative?
No, he's not. It's so complicated, right? It's no, there's no such thing as conservatives in Quebec. I mean, let's be honest. Like, I'm an Albertan, so compared to an Albertan, there are no conservatives in Quebec. We might see some comments otherwise, but I mean, the reason he says he represents the province is because he's currently their premier. But you're right, he's not polling well. But that and that brings up a whole other point that we're not going to talk about today. But that in Canada we have like three levels of government, right? The federal, provincial, and municipalities, and it's not uncommon for them to be like different, right? Like even here in Alberta, everybody always says like, why do you guys vote NDP once in a while? It's just a thing, right? People sort of like spread their vote. They don't want to put all their eggs in one basket at all three levels of the government. So it's common for to vote Conservatives federally, maybe Liberal provincially, and then something else municipally. So, yeah. But anyways, okay. We're here to talk about it. We're here to talk about Quebec, right? So
so I want to have other opinions. Everybody gets to hear just the two of us every Wednesday or every Thursday for them in the mornings. So I wanted to bring on some other voices.
Just before you bring on too many other voices, so for your viewers, I think they know this, right? I do speak French. I often get called a Quebecer. I'm not a Quebecer. To be clear, I was born in Northern Ontario. I'm by birth, I'm an Ontarian, but I've lived in Alberta longer, 35 years of my life, versus 20 in Ontario. I did live in Quebec for a while, though. I worked in Quebec for oil and gas, surprisingly. So I worked in Quebec for a while, and lived there. So I do, and initially. We'll get to that. We'll get back to how I used to defend Quebecers a long, long time ago, but not so much anymore.
So to give us another angle on this, maybe even some of the finances behind it, or even just the straight up knowledge about the corruption over there in that province, I want to welcome to the stage Bryce Wade. Thanks for joining us today, my man.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Good to see you again, Marty.
Yeah. Hey, you're not the one who got me that infection when I went to BC, are you?
It stands for bring cash, bro. The infection is stealing your money, bro.
Yeah.
So this is the question that's come up, and I brought this up today because when I hear a federal politician come in and Trudeau's basically handing over power to this guy. The deal with the NDP is down. It's gone. Well, it was off the table, but it's back on the table. Whatever. So what did Trudeau do? He goes to the Bloc Québécois. Hey, will you cut a deal with us? Yep. We'll totally prop you up for trinkets for all of us. Now, back in 2015, we were promised election reform. For anybody who voted for Trudeau, that's
Which I did, unfortunately.
That's
and, infinitely regret that.
Yeah, and I mean, they were voting for one of two things: pot or election reform, and a lot of people wanted that. Yeah, they wanted that election reform, right? Yeah. And your pot, but whatever. And we got none of that. Nice. And in fact, a lot of the reason why people don't like the electoral system in Canada is because Quebec and Ontario decide the vote every time. Yeah. And a lot of times, like there's just tons of influence in Quebec unduly. And this doesn't go just in the votes. This goes in everything. It goes to, how many seats are in the Supreme Court. It goes to how many senators they get. All of this stuff, all this political influence. That's just, it doesn't seem fair for the rest of Canada. I know, being from the West Coast, every time there's an election and you vote, you cast your vote, it's already being decided before you got home.
Yeah. Well, back in the good old days back in the good old days before the internet, they would black out television. So while the election was going on, we couldn't even see what was going on in Ontario and Quebec. And all of a sudden, at 8 o'clock our time, boom, the TV would come on and we'd see the results in Quebec and Ontario and go, the election's already been called. Like, it was completely common. Like for 3 or 4 elections when I was a young adult, by 8 o'clock, when we found out finally what was going on, CBC had already said, we declare a winner. So our votes are, we can't have fair representation based on the current constitution, because it puts these historical limits and quotas that favor Quebec and Ontario, and the East in general. I mean, PEI, an island of, I think, like, don't quote me, but I think there's 250,000 people on PEI. They get like 4 seats, Man, we got ridings that are all, like 200,000 people in Alberta gets you 2 ridings, but it gets you 4 so it's disproportionate.
It is disproportionate. And when I see, after 9 years of this disproportionate representation, and then everybody wants Trudeau out. This is across the board. Everybody wants Trudeau out. We heard that, Marty. And what does he do? He hands over power to the Bloc Québécois. And I mean, maybe it struck a nerve with me, but I'm just tired of hearing about it. And I'm at the point where I started thinking about it. What if Quebec wasn't part of Canada anymore? Would it actually be so bad? Would it be such a bad thing? Perhaps that might even work out better for us. If we're not married through government and we became trading partners, I think that might actually even be a better scenario. Energy would go, they would have an excuse to use their energy, because they wouldn't be getting those transfer payments. So there would be more energy in the market. There would be all kinds more activity happening because of a lot of these social programs and I would say, these programs are disincentive for Quebec to even get into the market in the first place.
I mean, at this point, for me, I have a hard time finding a valid reason to keep Quebec into Confederation. Other than maybe an emotional one where the whole country, and we keep the country whole. You pointed it out. I mean, it would they oppose us. Like, I'm an Albertan, so for me, they're not, they consider us an unfortunate consequence of Confederation, and they see us as a bit of a nuisance. And I mean, what's his name? Blanchette, the Bloc leader, said it this week. Like, he literally said, "I represent Quebec, and I really don't care about the rest of Canada. It's just an unfortunate circumstance."
What an absolute insult, man! What a douchebag, man! Screw that guy.
I'll bring that up.
But let me just finish my thought. So for me, I don't see a lot of good reasons for them to keep, but I can think of a lot of, like you said, good reasons. I mean, as an Albertan, it would probably save us $10 billion a year in extra taxes that we waste. So bring that up, that quote, because if that's the one you were going to bring up.
I'll bring that up in just a moment. We have another guest to bring into the panel. You guys have seen him many times before. He's come in. He's always a great guest to have. often bringing light to a lot of the situations that maybe we need a little bit more light to. I want to welcome to the show, Twos. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Oh, I've been sitting in backstage for like the past 5 minutes. Like, let me in. I'm texting.
I've been waiting for
Clyde,
a
and I'm
window. I saw you doing this. I'm like,
I have so much to say. So, I mean, like right off the bat. Okay, first off, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Good to see you, Clyde. Marty, always a pleasure. Bryce, we're new to each other, but I'm looking forward to getting to know you.
Pleasure to meet you, bro.
Yeah. PEI's got about 32,000 people per seat for their 4 seats. And Alberta has about 110,000 people per seat.
Right. I was doing the whole province when if you just do voters, yes, they have very few. Right.
So what it works out to is that a Prince Edward Island seat counts for about 4 times as much in the House of Commons as a seat in Alberta. Yeah. And so, yeah, you're bang on that. And then I gotta, now that we've met each other, Bryce, I gotta push back on something. You know, now that the ice has been broken, you know, you're calling Yves Blanchette a douchebag, which is fair, right? But you're like, well, he doesn't care about the rest of the province. His job isn't to care about the rest of the province. His job is to represent his constituents and further their interests in the best way possible in Parliament. And that's literally what he gets paid to do, and that's what he's doing. And so he stands up there and he's a dick and he's an entitled prick and a douchebag and all sorts of other things that are incredibly valid. But at the end of the day, he is doing what he's supposed to be doing up there.
I disagree.
I
disagree, and I want to throw this one out there.
I disagree also. I was going to,
I want to throw this out there. In Confederation, you're a federal party in Canada, in the whole government of Canada. And yes, you should support your constituency, and you should do everything that you can for your constituency, but never at the expense of other Canadians.
Exactly.
And that is the key right there.
You must be new to Confederation.
No. I mean, you're right. I'm on the same page as
Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you twos. I mean, I have defended him for doing that. Like, or a common argument that I hear from people is the bloc shouldn't exist as an entity. I'm like, no, they have every right to do what they do. You're right. They do it very well. I mean, they stand up for their own interest. But yes, as Clyde,
at the expense of everybody else.
At the expense of everybody else, I find that a little bit, you know. And I'll say this, and this might not be popular with everybody, but I've worked with Quebecers, and I do find that win-win is not in their vocabulary. I don't know why. They think win-lose. They really do. Like they're not a collaborative group. They just aren't. And I don't know if if it's historical of having felt abused over time, and they've become.
They went 1,000 years without winning a single war, let alone skirmish. So
yeah.
Well, there's that old white flag. I don't know if people get the wrong idea.
Yeah, I don't even know why they have the 2 other parts of the flag, to be honest.
Okay, so I got the clip that Marty was talking about here. I'll pop this up because this is important to hear. This really is.
There is little fundamental difference between conservatives and liberals. For what? Because they are serving the same country, which is Canada, trying to seduce the same people.
He's not wrong.
Have that obstacle. So we
they
only
don't care
serve
about Canada
the
at all.
interests of Quebec. They only serve the interests of Canada against Quebec. So it is not up to me to choose who will continue to harm Quebec.
So basically saying, yeah. Well,
what a myopic worldview. Like, how could you even suggest that the entire purpose of political parties is to attack Quebec? Absolute nonsense.
I wish that was true. I honestly, to God, wish that what he said was valid and that it was the rest of the country against Quebec instead of giving.
What is now?
Well, yeah, that's fair. Instead of I'm gonna be a little bit kinder to this province than I usually describe them on my show and call them just Quebec.
Yeah.
But you know, the equalization. We give them what, $13-14 billion a year? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you feel taken advantage of? We just gave $2.5 billion to this dead in the water, never gonna get off the ground startup that's just been a funnel for government funds to set up satellites across world or rural Canada. Basically it's the Quebec Starlink.
It's another communist government program.
It's barely that.
How many times are we going to bail out Bombardier before you start being able to say to us that we're not against Quebec? I'm against Quebec. Screw them entirely. But our federal government, gives you whatever the hell you want.
Backwards, man, for them.
And the funny thing is they're supposed to be a bunch of separatists. They're now in a position where they've got a blank check from the Liberals. Whatever you want, we will do it so that we can maintain power for another year. You name it, we'll give it to you. All right,
that's an interesting point.
We're a separatist party. We're a separatist party, right? And we've got a blank check. Our raison d'être is separation.
Actually, I don't think it is. That's what I was going to say. The language the Bloc is using these days sounds a little bit separatist, but they're not a separatist party. They're they represent Quebec. They don't call for separation. Behind the scenes, the provincial group that they are separatists, like but federally, actually,
they should be the
subtle, right?
Bloc, it should be the blood from a stone Quebecois.
Blood from a stone. That doesn't.
Clyde, can you bring up my image, because I think this image really well encapsulates what this is. So this is from 1968. Okay, and I saw this decades ago when I was a kid.
There's one from 1929 or 1919 that's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so what this is essentially showing is how Canada works, is that all of the resource and all the energy and all the minerals come from the West. We do a lot of production out here in the West, and we get screwed. So the equalization payments, which, to be fair, is literally pretty close to communism, because hey, that's some great money you made over there. We'll take it, and we'll give it to Quebec and whoever else in the East. And so what essentially happens is all of the resources that our country makes basically go to Quebec and Ontario, and everybody else gets screwed. And so I think one of the central themes that we're really talking about here is a question of yes or no. Does the system that we currently live in and that we've grown up being, which is, the Confederation of Canada, does this system effectively work for us as Canadians? And in my opinion, it hasn't for decades, but now these problems are becoming very, very pronounced. And if the answer to that is no, and it doesn't work, the next obvious question is, why doesn't it work? And then the obvious question after that is, well, what are we going to do about it? And then
what do you do about it?
What do we want? What would our system look like to not have these stupid problems where one province can dictate whether or not the national government falls or not? Because I think I have to give a little bit of credit to Blanchette. Jagmeet Singh is one of the worst politicians in history, not because of his destructive ability to screw everything up. He has that as well, but because he's so bad at being in politics, he literally has been propping up the government for years now and got nothing for it. He's basically just a stooge sitting there getting nothing. Mm-hmm. But at least Blanchette did something and got something for his effort. So credit where credit's due. It's just not very good for all of us.
Let's talk about what he got. Let's talk about what he got.
Pharmaceutical stuff. Yeah, he got the dental care for 73 different seniors, and he's forced their hand a little bit in terms of the anti-scab legislation, which I'm pretty sure that was the NDP that put that through, even though for everybody who loves Conservative Party out there, the anti-scab legislation that got passed for the unions was passed unanimously. Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. What a downer.
Yeah. Sorry to. Yeah. Oh, now everybody's sad.
So I wanted to talk about what Quebec is actually negotiating in here. So here's from the National Post. Canada is considering a plan to relocate tens of thousands of asylum seekers across its provinces from Ontario and Quebec, aiming for a fair distribution.
You mean equalization?
Oh man, wow, that's great. That's really good, actually. So of course they throw Ontario into the mix, because they couldn't just do Quebec and then not do Ontario and just Yeah, look, Quebec's separatist party is in power, and we're just doing Quebec. So they throw Ontario into the mix to make it seem like it's not a favorite game. It is a favorite game. This is exactly what's happening, and none of the other provinces are vying for this. In fact, where are all these asylum seekers coming in? A huge number of them are coming in through Quebec.
No, they're mostly coming in through Quebec because we talked about this on the show. It's a long ways from New York. If you're already in New York, you're not going to come all the way to North Dakota and then go north into Alberta.
No.
Yeah. Hey, a quick weird question. Does anybody know what the actual non-confidence vote is next week? Like, what's the topic? Because everybody, like Jagmeet already said, he's not voting for it.
And ever. It's basically it's just the Parliament has lost confidence in the governing Liberals or something. Roughly that. It's kind of like that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say credit to Pierre for doing that, but like they've already essentially said that Canadians don't want this. And one of the things that infuriates me most about our politicians is they always say Canadians believe, the majority of Canadians. How the fuck would you know? You never ask. You have no polling. You don't do any public polling at all. And we don't have any idea what Canadians actually believe. The majority of polls say right now that Canadians want an election and to remove the idiots in Parliament now, to replace them with Pierre Poilievre on the off chance that things might improve. They might clean up the mess that these morons made, right? I would love it if all content creators across Canada just did a poll, do you support the government or not? Because it's a yes or no question, right? And one of the big things that pisses me off about our country in general is that we have no ability to use our voice and our vote, which is what a democracy is supposed to be, at our own speed. Because it's absolutely insane to me that the government that is currently in power, that has been accused of unconstitutionally doing stuff, corruption, scandals on a weekly basis almost now, they get to decide, would we get to go to the polls again to see if they get removed from power? It's insane, right? And the thing that is missing in our
recall legislation.
I do want to recall. If we have the power to put them in, we should have the power to put them out. And no democracy on the planet has that because they don't want us to have that power. And and like I was saying earlier, if we're going to determine something to change this so that these idiots actually have the fear of the people in them, that is one of the core things that we need to be able to do as somebody within our constituency at the constituency level. If this idiot lies to me and doesn't do what they're going to do, why the hell do you get to keep your job, bro? In any private sector, if you fuck up enough, you get fired. But in public policy, when you steal money from the people, you'd be like, well, take me out of the ballot box, bro. Like, what?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, although there are places that have it, BC, I think, has some recall legislation. And
it's ridiculous, though. Well, there's no way to pull it off.
This is where I'm going with this.
They removed it.
Alberta also has some that the UCP passed, but it's the threshold is so high that it's more toothless than a Manitoban.
Yeah.
Well, so it's harder to get that. It's harder to get. So like the voter turnout is less than the requirements for a recall. Yeah. It's so ridiculous that you have to get that many signatures when, like X amount of 1,000 people voted for this person, but you need hundreds of thousands of votes or signatures to get this person even a recall considered.
We can't get all the dead people to vote the way we want.
I heard that joke recently. It was like, Grandpa's, I know things have been changing in his life, or things have changed a lot with Grandpa. He did this through his 20s, this through his 30s. Now that he's dead, ever since he died, he's been voting Democrat.
That's. Can you bring up my image?
Yeah, sure.
I think actually one of the states just announced that this week. One of the states did clean up its voter registry, and they revealed that they had like 115,000 dead people in their registry.
Arizona, Georgia did that. Texas did that too. They're going through their voter rolls, and we should be doing the same thing. And what I have up here is basically we have imported more than 10% of our total population in the last 4 years.
Yeah,
and I think one of the keys here is that there's only 3 ways that you can get in this country. We're surrounded on 3 sides by an ocean and one on the other side by the biggest military on the planet. So there's only 3 ways to get in, which is swim, walk, or fly, right? So for people to be here illegally, that means they probably flew, because I doubt they swam and I doubt they walked across that border. So if they did, that means they got in through a port of entry, they talked to CBD, whatever the border patrol is, and they walked through. And we were going to give citizenship to a freaking terrorist.
Okay, so
whatever.
here's the problem, and I brought this up many times. Roxham Road is a choice place. It was only ever brought up by Trudeau himself. He made people aware of it internationally, that people could come in through that area. The problem is the CBSA is not there. They are only stationed at regular border crossings. What they've called this, deemed it an irregular border crossing. They don't want to call it an illegal border crossing. So they have RCMP. They have a station there, and it's an RCMP station, a makeshift one, where the RCMP will detain you because you've crossed over illegally. The real solution is just to put a box there for the CBSA and an agent that can say, you're not allowed to enter,
or a wall.
Yeah, but the thing is, the wall might work.
The wall.
Yeah.
But make it a regular border crossing.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, the RCMP can't tell people they're not allowed to enter the country. So all they can do is detain them once they get here and then release them into the wild. And the only solution that I can see in my mind's eye here is make it a regular border crossing. Like put a gate, put a thing, and tell them no, you can't come in without proper identification and all that stuff.
Well, no, there's other things you could do too. You could just let him in and then drive him back to wherever, and then shove him back out the other side. I mean, it's just political will. We don't want to do anything, because if we wanted to do something, we'd shut down that border. Absolutely,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I think that's the key. But one of the other things that there's been other leaders that are dealing with this problem, like Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. Basically, he had a brilliant idea that's really simple. Anybody that comes here, we're not paying for, because you got to understand that all of these people that are coming here are getting paid by our tax dollars, right?
Yeah.
And so the mere ability for you to get here is one problem, but the ability for you to stay here and operate here is another. Where do you stay? Where do you go? How do you have a bank system? How do you have a cell phone? How do you have all of these modern things of technology and modern society that we have? You can cut off any of those and it's hard to function in society. But the key point is, these people are intentionally bringing these people here for a purpose, and it is to destabilize and destroy the civilization and society that we have. Because if they do that, they get to take over. And if you bring up my image again here, Clyde, this is what's happening, right? I've posted this hundreds of times across Twitter, because this is the goal, right? This is what is happening. We don't get the value of our resources. We're being sold off. We have our military dying on the vine. We have unbelievable amounts of debt that is intentional, that is collapsing our finances. And we're importing millions of people as we're about to face a recession, when we already have a cost of living crisis on top of not enough housing already. This is not unintentional. This is an intentional destruction of our country.
Counterpoint to that, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
While I think that everything you're saying is right, I think there's probably a more right answer, and I might get a lot of pushback on this. This could get really feisty here in a little bit.
Forward to it.
All right,
I'll jag me thing at you, bro.
All right, do it. Yeah. Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I would have said that. I would say if I said that.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing: is, well, yes, that's absolutely how it's playing out. But I like the idea of looking at the simplest answer, and the simplest answer being that these are a bunch of cheese dick jerks who will hold on to power by any means necessary.
Yeah,
and they don't care. They'd rather rule the ashes than to let somebody else be in charge and have things go well. And this is them doing whatever it takes to stay in power as long as possible. The end result being that it is ashes. But the simplest answer, I would say, is just that they love power. They want to be in charge, and that's it. And I would say that the Austrian School of Economics would lend itself towards that as well.
I wish it was that simple and that innocent, but it's I think a lot more nefarious than that.
Well, I think both can be correct at the same time. I think there can be a lot of people who are self-serving,
your
self-interested.
point can be true at the same time, for sure.
Yeah, I think like those things aren't like, yeah, they can definitely be true at the same time. I think there's a lot of people in Parliament, especially, that they get in there, maybe even they get in there, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and they think that they're going to do all this great stuff, and then they just see how it actually works, and it jades people, like they get jaded, and then they see the way it is, and then they just play along to get along, and then try to keep things going as best they can.
And sure, and I'll push back a little bit. I mean, it's there's a nefarious component to it, but there's also just a plain incompetence component. I mean, like we are a country that lives beyond our means. We've been doing so for decades. And we give ourselves all these social benefits and programs that rely on fucking people paying for it and taxpayers. And and we're running out of cash. And some people just naively think that, hey, well, the solution is let's let in more people. I think in the last few years that has been one of the problems, and it's just backfiring on them because we're letting idiots dictate policy, and it's They might have thought that it would solve a problem down the road, but it created so many short-term problems. It's incredible what it did. I mean, look at here in Alberta this week. A couple of guys posted a tweet, and I don't think most people understand this, but Danielle invited people to Alberta. She said it. She invited people to Alberta because she wanted to. No, not that many, but she wanted to solve a problem. We have a
too many cats.
And then this week,
Saskatchewan, nice.
And then what happened this week? She had to admit that, hey, it's out of control, and now I got to spend all this money we had, this surplus. We have to spend $8 billion to build schools, a whole surplus to deal with the problem we created. It's like, way to go. You attracted workers that you thought was going to create a solution, and you made the problem worse. Like it is what it is.
That's unfair. That's absolutely unfair to the people that created that surplus, the people who raised that money in the coffers, and then to throw it on into infrastructure that's not going to benefit them whatsoever, but benefit newcomers. Yeah, that's enough to be frustrated about.
So in the comments, go ahead.
No, I was going to say Clyde probably wants to read comments, but let's get back to our topic. I mean, we're supposed to talk about.
Okay, so here's the point I wanted to get to. So I think because the question you raised earlier, Marty, was what do we do about it? What are we going to do about it? Like there's all these problems. What is there to do about it? I think the Quebec thing could be the first good start in the right direction. I think that Quebec separating and becoming their own entity is the first step in a long line of all the provinces becoming their own entity, away from this largesse of this federal government. Take the power of taxation, put it in the hands of the provinces. And then later, if everybody wants to get back together as Canada, get back together with a new deal, with an entirely new deal, a new proposition, and a new constitution. And this could be the first step in that direction. So I'm absolutely on board with Quebec separating, becoming their own entity.
I like that idea.
I will actually advocate for it and become a Quebec separatist outside of Quebec.
I like that idea. Clyde, that's like, I was thinking when you were talking, I was thinking about our confederation as sort of a partnership with an abusive partner.
Yeah.
And I was thinking Quebec needs to go because it's for their own good as much as it is for us.
Absolutely.
And you brought up a great point, a trial separation. Let's we're allowed to date other people. So Quebec, go your way. Hey, this could be good. Well, we're going to date while we dump Quebec. Who are we dating?
We don't have to date anybody. We can just be single. We can just be single. But here's the thing.
Go drinking.
Well, I mean,
drinking with our buddies.
I mean, now we've actually got some free cash flow because we're not buying the wife jewelry every goddamn week, right? Mm-hmm. But
I get a new truck. You get a new truck. Clyde, Bryce gets a new truck. We all get new trucks.
Is that when you think about it in terms of a relationship, the idea in a relationship that's going well is that every day, both of you wake up wanting to be in that relationship. You're not forced into it. You're making a conscious decision. You say, this is good for me. It's good for her. And we're happy together and we want to keep moving forward. But it hasn't been like that in Canada for a long time. And Confederation ought to be like that. That's what Confederation ought to look like, is that every day we look at it and say, we're better off being part of Canada than being away from Canada.
Right.
And sure,
But
there
we
might
should do
be
it
the
on
odd
our
difficult
terms.
time.
Every province should be able to do it on their terms and
Well, that's where
dictate
Confederation came from. That idea.
Yeah.
But it's not that. It's not
That's not
that
what
at
we
all.
have.
But the thing about it is, the thing to make it work like that is you got to be able to make it easy for people to leave. So if New Brunswick suddenly decides that they're sick of welfare and EI and they want to go their own way, and okay, it should be easy for them to say, hey, you know what? This doesn't work for me anymore. I'm out. Because that way it's not quite like this, but you kind of have that sword hanging over your head where you say, look, I have to work hard to make sure that everybody here wants to be in this relationship. And the way it's written right now, you have no exit strategy. And so they can just do whatever they want.
Yeah, I want to date Texas. Whoever said that. Yeah, Texas is a good date.
I want to date
Texas.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
There would be a whole bunch of like very important economic implications for doing something like that, because because you have to look at this from a couple different perspectives. Like, we're kind of looking at this from I am a citizen perspective. I'm getting screwed, which we all agree we are. I get that, right? We also
but I think Quebec's getting screwed too. I think they're getting screwed out of their libido to actually do stuff.
No.
I think.
Let me be really clear. Everybody is getting screwed in this. Like, there's nobody that's not getting screwed. There's just the people that know they're getting screwed and those people that don't. So that's the difference. So my point here is a little bit different, right? So we as citizens, most of us that aren't like far left cultists, understand we're getting screwed, right? But you have to look at it from a business perspective too, because what business is an organization of people, capital, and things, and IP as well, right? And they come to Canada or anywhere on the world to accomplish things so that they can make money. So you have to have an environment where the regulatory framework allows you, or the citizens and businesses within them, to have a framework where we can work together and do stuff for the economy. And one of the
you
problems
can reasonably
with Quebec,
predict what it's going to look like in the future.
Exactly. And one of the problems with Quebec is they are a unique regulatory area within the country. And so if you remember back to the good old days of, hey, you can join this this contest or whatever, not available in Quebec. And that not available in Quebec was because of that, because they have their own regulatory framework that is separate and different from everybody else in the country. And if you have a country that is set up like that, it's very different for businesses to work in multiple areas of the country. Like we don't even have, like, it was very recently in the last like 10 or 15 years, I think, that we actually had a free trade agreement between the provinces. We're in one country and we don't have like proper free trade agreements within our own province or between the provinces. Like that's crazy. And it just goes to show you how incompetent our leaders are. And we were focusing on like tampons in men's bathrooms when all of this other nonsense is happening. Is like to your point earlier, Tews, that the unbelievable incompetence of the people that are in charge of us is breathtaking, to say the least.
Yeah, to say the least.
Breathtaking is a great way to put it. Like, every week, you're just like, seriously?
Oh,
like we're at a new low. Like, how can it possibly get any worse? And then Justin Trudeau is over in Ottawa saying, "Hold my apple teeny."
So let's get to some of these super chats. We'll get to some of these and then get back to the chat. Daifeichu with the $5 super chat says, why do we put so much power in the federal hands? It's a collective mindset. We have more focus. We have to focus more on local. And this is exactly what we're talking about.
He's absolutely right.
Let's get this out of the federal government. My idea with this I guess balkanization of Canada would be to create separate states of the provinces and then come back as under a new umbrella. But if the federal government wants to, do some project, well, they'll have to raise funds and they'll have to lobby the provinces for the money. If the provinces, say, I don't want to do that, then they don't do it. That's it. That would be a great deal.
The Faiku asked a good question, and the answer is we didn't put it there. They grabbed it. Like the original Confederation was not a parent-child relationship with Ottawa and the provinces underneath. It was a confederation. Like, we all had our own powers side by side. Over time, Ottawa just grabbed so much power,
centralization,
and it absolutely accelerated in the last decade under Trudeau. Like, Trudeau's grabbing it
too much,
and the courts are even saying it's illegal. You can't do that. It's like, oh, whatever, we'll just keep doing it.
But there's always strings attached to the funding. Oh yeah, we'll give you guys a whole bunch of money, but you got to do what we want. And I think, focus on local, absolutely correct. my stance on anything, regardless of whether I agree with it or not, is that the smallest government should be ultimately correct. And so, like when Toronto wanted to ban handguns a little while ago, I think that's absolutely insane. But I don't live in Toronto. I shouldn't have a say in Toronto. The federal government shouldn't have a say. If a municipality wants to enact laws that are different from a provincial or federal level, then absolutely. So like right now, Toronto is, Ontario is saying that they're planning to table legislation aiming to restrict bike lanes on city streets. But as far as I'm concerned, the province of Ontario has no business saying how the cities and towns need to set up their infrastructure.
No, I agree. But then,
even though I think I think they're right, but I don't think they should have the power to do it.
But I wouldn't push down too much power down to the smallest entity, calling it, the municipal government, because then it becomes confusing. Can you imagine if Toronto had a drinking age of 21 and Montreal has one of 20 and fucking Sherbrooke nearby has one of 18? Like, holy shit, right? So there are some values of things run a little bit better. I don't know. I mean, it's an idea. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but
in Tulsenburg on a flashing light, that means it's an advanced green, but a flashing light in Chatham means that you gotta
all right. Well, but that's
that's
a little bit.
You'll cause
You're not
some
going to say
car
red
accidents.
is green and green is red in a different municipality, right?
Well, you would actually. Speaking of Quebec, I mean, their lights are sideways instead of vertical. They're horizontal, and actually, Quebec does one good thing on signal lights. They're shaped for so they're not just color, but they're shaped. So the go is a square, green square, slow down is yellow triangles, and stop is red circles. So anyways, fuck it.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on. Apoplectic Canadian for $10 says, even with a conservative supermajority in our future, how does it work with an appointed, unelected liberal supermajority in the Senate? Do they get the final approval for bills being passed? Well,
Yes.
technically they do. They have the final approval, and they could stymie and squash everything. It is, it's hardly a sober second thought. It's a stolen, hijacked government, is what it is.
No, that's a great question. I mean, I'm curious if the Senate starts rejecting bills left, right, and center in the future, that'll be a problem, because I don't think they do right now. I mean,
I think the last time they did that
they're
was in
in power.
1992.
No,
they don't rubber snap. They can
Oh,
hold it up, they
right?
can turn it around and delay it. But hopefully, if they start rejecting in the Senate in the future, that'd be.
So right now they don't have to reject things, because the only things going to the Senate are radical left bills.
Well,
I
this is
mean,
the point. And the last time that they did reject a bill was for the EMA. So the only reason that Trudeau isn't a literal dictator with Canada under martial law is because the Senate rejected the EMA. That's the only reason that
they
happened.
didn't reject it.
They did.
It got pulled.
Yes,
the
they were
bill
going
got
to reject it, and he
pulled
pulled it back
before
the
it
day
got
before.
rejected.
But it was going to be rejected, and that's why he pulled it back. So
Yes, but they almost did their job once in 30 years.
Wow.
Exactly.
Then it was moot, right? That word is.
I know. But this is kind of the point, and this question is actually speaking to a really important part of our democracy that is absolutely broken. So what you have is the Prime Minister having the ability to appoint senators at their own discretion, and their lifelong appointments. They're unelected. They have a significant amount of power, and they're not accountable to anybody for any reason at all, ever. Right. So one of the good things about the American system is that the kind of the representation thing that we were talking about earlier is the Senate is supposed to be, you get 2 people for each state. Right. And the Congress is represented by a percentage of the population. So however many people in that riding based on how much population in that state. And so we could, and this is kind of my point going back to, we have to upgrade our garbage system, because clearly Trudeau broke it and it wasn't working that well anyway, right? So one of the things that would need to change is, what are we going to do with the Senate? Why do we have a whole body of the government that's unelected? That's retarded.
Right. One of the big changes that would be necessary in this country, and I thought it was going to happen at one point in my lifetime, is to get rid of the monarchy, right? I mean, everything
Why do we still have a monarchy?
We inherited.
Yeah, it's gotta go.
Because that's a big difference between the Americans and us. I've talked about this before. The Americans fought the British and then went their own separate way, and you can tell they value their freedom differently. We didn't fight for our freedom. It was it was given to us. Our freedom, not given to us, sort of granted to us, right? Like, here's a little bit of freedom, fellow or Canadian, whatever.
Plebeians.
Yeah,
well, and we're still under the,
we'll give you a little
crown. We have crown corporations where when you get sued, it's by the crown, right? We still have an attorney general that is over the parliaments, right? I think they still swear fealty to the crown. Like, this stuff is from ancient times. Like, think of anything in society that we use right now. That's
but ancient's not always bad. I mean, the Americans.
No, it's not always bad.
The Americans are older than us, but it works. Yeah. I hate that term crown. Like this past year, every time I saw that, crown versus, I'm beginning to hate that word. I hate.
I'm with you.
Okay,
but yeah,
wait.
Old isn't always bad.
Somebody give me a good reason why we should still continue to be associated with the crown and pick up the requisite costs that result from it. Somebody,
I don't know. So the National Enquirer still has readers. I don't know.
I got it, bro. So this is my argument here. Let me see if you guys are down for this deal. Listen, me and my family were really rich, okay, and I conquered this country over here, and then I conquered other places on the planet. And because I did that, now you're mine. Mic drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not down with it.
Yeah. No, you're not down?
No, not down with it. Let's move on. Okay, Chris with the $20 super chat says, Marty, I've noticed you become pessimistic when it comes to Pierre and Danielle based on your recent X posts. They're going against the political establishment. They're in the same position as Trump. We must be patient.
No,
trust the plan, Marty.
Yeah, and you can't compare Pierre and Danielle.
Which establishment are they going against exactly?
Yeah,
any establishment?
Yeah,
I'm still waiting. So here's the thing. So Trump comes out. He gets the mic and he says they're not sending us their best. They're sending us rapists and murderers and all this other stuff. Pierre, what does he do? He quietly, sometimes in interviews, say, yeah, that's too many people for the country. Yeah. Very different. Very different. The rhetoric's completely different. Trump's coming right out and he's saying all those extra people that came in, they can't stay. They got to go. We're going to have the mass deportation.
I thought you were going to do the Trump imitation there. You almost had it.
They keep coming in. They're eating the dogs.
They're eating the
cats. You know what, though? I mean, really, we could use a lot more world leaders like Donald Trump.
That's why they hate
constantly being shot at.
But just
well, they hate him because he keeps. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just address Chris because he or she wrote the letter. I mean, I'm disappointed in Danielle and lately in Pierre. I mean, they're and I'm just holding politicians accountable, and it looks like I'm turning against them. And I always say to people, it's on them, it's not on me. Deliver on your promises, do what we want you to do or what you're supposed to do, and you'll have my full support. It's not that complicated. Like and Pierre is really disappointing because he's been in power for so long, and short answer. Take a kick at it.
I mean, here's the thing is, do you want to have people who give your preferred leader a golden pass to do whatever they want? Or do you want to have people who are having honest conversations about where they see shortfalls?
Yeah. Like, so when it came to Trump, because I'm a dual citizen, so I can always weigh in, and Americans can't say tickety
double dipping.
I can double dip. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, when it came to Trump, he didn't get certain things done when he was in office. You criticize him all day for that stuff. He trusted some really bad people. Why? He was naive in trusting certain people, like Bolton. Come on, like why would you even put that guy in your vicinity? But nonetheless, he did certain things. I think what he did was good. Some of the stuff he was doing economically was a bit like inflationary. I wouldn't agree with that.
Absolutely.
But what he did was he knew that was going to be the case. He's talked about this. He knew that was going to be the case, so he countered it with other economic incentives like lowering taxes, getting more business happening, that kind of stuff. So why
not just do the latter part, leave the other stuff alone?
Well, so he's still, and
Still-
I disagree with it. It's this whole concept of stimulate the economy, and then more economic activity takes place. I think if you just get out of the way, people will do that regardless. You don't need to do that.
Trump, if he gets back in, Trump 2.0 is going to be really fun to watch. I think he learned a lot from his first go at it, and he's going to
He'll
be
take a hack and slash.
But give him credit for what he did do. And what he did do, the Abraham Accords, he should have won the Nobel Prize for that. I mean, he's done so much for peace, and
he brought peace to the Middle East.
Yeah, it's great. It's
great.
Great.
I know it's a little bit off topic, but it's on the topic of Trump. But remember during the debate last week when he talked about Abdul and how he took out the picture and scared Abdul?
Have you ever seen that video?
I saw the video. It's real. Like it turned out it was absolutely real. Yeah, that's awesome,
real,
man. And I know, like, when he says that he would end the war in Ukraine by calling Putin and Vladimir together, I bet you he would. I bet you he would.
I would. Yeah. I think he would.
The thing about it is,
deal broker.
He's a guy with nukes, and he's crazy enough, or at least his public persona is crazy enough that you don't really know what he's going to do. And it works well in business too, where you're just like, well, I don't know. Is this deal going to fall apart if I stand on my principles? Yeah. Okay. And then people give way a little bit and he comes out further ahead. It's probably something he did a million times as a businessman. And I think it's probably helped him out a lot in the world stage.
Now, I've noticed that Google Maps over my head changes frequently. I'm wondering if I'm on somebody's radar. Oh, and by the way, on a totally separate topic too, like, change your phones, folks, right? And get your old school phones. Like, don't get the modern Samsung 13 or whatever. Go back to your iPhone 2. The
Samsungs are like up to like 20.
Well, you can tell us to get pagers
right
now, Marty. That didn't work out.
Don't get pagers.
Don't get a pager.
Pagers, and then we can all communicate with smoke signals.
Get something reliable that's been in your desk for a few years that you haven't used, and bring it out. You know.
So getting back to the question at hand here, I want to say that when it comes to the government, Pierre's a shoo-in. He's going to win. It's our job to keep him on task and him not to stray and go to the left. Every time we get it, this is how the Western world's been going. 2 steps to the left, 1 step back. 2 steps to the left, 1 step back. 2 steps to the left. We got to end that cycle, and we need to actually say no. We're not going to do that. You're going to stick to your guns.
Yeah, and I think you raised an important point. Politicians only give a shit about you when they're trying to get your vote, right? And so right now, everybody in the country knows that Pierre is going to be our next prime minister, assuming that we have a fair and open election, and assuming we actually have one at all. With all the stupid shit that's happening, we might not. But that's a story for another time.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bryce.
Yeah, just let me finish this point and then hand it back. So one of the reasons, so I joined the Conservative Party. I've never voted for the Conservatives before, but I joined because I want to be able to yell at my team and say, hey, you idiots said that you were going to do this. You better follow up on that. You better actually do that. And we better see the change that we want to see, because changing out the team from the red team to the blue team isn't going to do shit unless we make sure that when that change happens, there's upgrades to the system. And the ultimate point that I always want to make is that the system is broken. That means that it doesn't matter who is in charge. You're always going to get some bullshit results. And what Trudeau has proven over the last 10 years is all of the checks and balances that our system is supposed to have are literally irrelevant. All of the corruption, all of the stupidity, all of the printing, all of the many other bad things, they all prove that things are broken, and they're only going to be fixed if we, the people, say enough is enough, fuck these guys, get out of here, and we have to be part of that change, because nobody else is going to do this for us.
Yep.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Sure. you talk about the $5 super chat says when LPC and NDP talk about Canadians, they're talking about themselves, not us. I've got nothing to do with that one, but agree.
Yeah, we all agree.
That's where we're at. G Meister with a $10 super chat says, 1, leave the monarchy. 2, invite Quebecan to leave.
Like
3,
surrender beaners.
3, get population approved laws. And 4, hold politicians accountable through the law.
That's what a constitution is supposed to be. It's supposed to limit the power of the government, not us.
Yeah, and that's what we need. I'm scared of a constitutional convention at the moment, because it'll just be the Communist Manifesto. If you ask me, that's what'll happen right now.
Actually, in this day and age, we would probably call it the Communist People Kind Festo.
There you go. Yeah. No, I love those 3 words at the beginning of the American Constitution, man. We the people.
people.
Like, it's
Yeah.
so simple.
Of by and for.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Penny D with a $10 super chat says, "Hi Clyde, what a great group of goo." I think she had entered when she meant to keep typing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. Chris with another $5 super chat. He says, to add, Pierre has all 3 parties by their short and curlies. They're panicking. He's playing 4D chess, just like Trump against the DNC. Well, and this is why I brought up the whole concept with the Bloc Québécois and like they're number 1 in Quebec. The Conservatives are number 3. They don't like him in Quebec, and that needs to change. Or the attitude towards our Confederacy needs. That's my opinion.
No, and back to our original topic. I mean, Pierre, like any politician in this country who can make all the promises he wants, but he has to get elected before he can enact even in good faith, right? And so you can see it like while they're campaigning, they have to cater to Quebec and Ontario. I'll tell you a story. Like, I heard this, and I'm from a pretty confident source. Pierre reached out to Danielle recently. Because you remember here in Alberta, we were talking about the Alberta pension plan. And the Alberta pension plan scares people out east, because if Alberta gets out of the pension plan, that's less money for them. We're subsidizing the CPP, right? Mm-hmm. And Pierre literally told Danielle, please stop talking about this until I'm elected. And please be a more moderate conservative until I'm elected, because you're scaring my base. You know,
I hate that.
He doesn't need us.
That's a game.
He doesn't need us for votes, but he needs us to be quiet, not to scare people out east. So
I think you're absolutely right, Marty. Absolutely about that. And I'll take it, just slightly different direction. But the problem is that, well, first off, Danielle Smith dropped the ball completely on the Alberta pension plan, and it did more to hinder it than it would have had she done nothing, because it's like, this is our champion that we're presenting to fight against your champion. And then she just throws the match. And the thing about it is that if it actually came to a head where we actually refuted all of the bad arguments against the Alberta pension plan, and Pierre Poilievre was forced to weigh in, now he has to decide whether he wants to win Alberta votes or Ontario votes. And if he goes after Alberta votes, he possibly gives up being prime minister. And if he goes after Ontario votes, he opens up a back door for Maverick or somebody like Maverick to start saying, hey, you know what? This guy does not give a shit about you.
Yep. No, you're spot on. And we don't talk about him very often, but another federal politician is Max Bernier, right? Max was going down that path. Max was the guy who was willing to say, I'll give the powers back to the provinces. Okay, sounds good. Mm-hmm. But you need to be elected. And so in order to be elected, he had to, tone down. And make promises to Quebec. So we're back to that whole discussion. So for us as Westerners, we'll never get a fair deal. Just the way
because it's exactly what Bryce was saying before, where they don't care about you until they try and win your votes. It's why nobody cares about Indigenous stuff right now. But 6 or 8 months from now, you're going to see a whole lot of federal politicians talking about how much they value our Indigenous communities.
What's coming up?
Want to give our land away.
And
what's coming up? That's the concern there.
Oh well, just because that way they've got enough lead time in front of the elections to make them feel warm and fuzzy and vote for them.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. So we've talked all evening. There's some big problems with the way we're structured as a confederation, and there's 2 solutions. One is we adjust the confederation, or the other one is some of the provinces start leaving. And adjusting the confederation, I'm old enough to remember that we tried that for about 20 years under Chrétien, under Mulroney, under those guys, the Meech Lake Accord. There was all sorts of efforts to try and adjust the formulas and the seats and all that, and they all backfired because the people out east, they're not going to give up their power. And
no, they don't.
They will not. So that'll never, ever fly. So we're back to,
Wexit.
Yeah, Wexit. I'd love Alberta to go. I actually think the province most
But
likely to go first is Quebec, and
Yes.
and if Quebec goes, I'll encourage them. I mean, they
yeah,
won
Absolutely.
last time we actually got on buses and went over there and begged with them to stay. Like
Like,
seriously.
No, we
if they were-
we should go
if they
there
were-
and beg them to do it. Keep going.
Yeah.
Like
Like,
honestly,
no, bye-bye.
if the Bloc Québécois was an actual separatist party, and if they ran in Western Canada, they'd sweep. They'd go door knocking, and it'd be like,
Do
"All
you hate
right,
Trudeau? Leave today.
all right,
Well,
you
well,
All
here's
right,
the other
you
thing too
poutine
out of
monkey,
this.
how do you feel about like the economy? We
Yeah.
just want to how you say separate, and they'd be like, okay, good enough for me. Yeah, you got put up a lawn sign. I'm going to vote for you.
Well,
If-
how about
That's
this
it.
though? If there was a real groundswell across Canada for Quebec to separate, and the Bloc Québécois would be in a very precarious situation, because then they'd have the constituents that want to separate, they'd have Canadians across the country that want them to separate, and they'll have the political wherewithal to actually do it. And if they don't, then the
lying
emperor
to
has no
power.
clothes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call him out. Call
Yeah,
him out
and
on the
actually, I talked about this last week in the events leading up to the by-elections. I don't think Pierre should have ran any Conservatives in Quebec. I think, luckily the outcome was okay. The Bloc won, but Pierre shouldn't. I wouldn't run. Don't run any Conservatives in Quebec. Let the Bloc just take it over and then let them go.
According to CTV, they didn't run Conservatives in Quebec.
Yeah,
Did you
they
guys
weren't
see
even
that?
on the. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
they
hilarious.
listed all of the people running in that Quebec by-election except for the Conservatives on the CTV.
That's slick. Wow.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
that's-
on brand.
Yeah,
Well,
Hey,
Yeah,
did you
it's
see
social
the-
media for you, bro?
yeah.
That's why nobody
That-
wants
That's
that
so
card
crazy,
anymore.
though. Holy cow! I mean, the
That
liability.
was a crazy
of the-
by-election too, right? How many candidates on that ballot? Like 87 or
96,
something?
I think, or something
Yeah,
like that.
ridiculous, man.
Donovan Ekstrom ran in it. He ran
But
in the one in Toronto. He's this guy who lives in Grand Prairie, and he
Yeah.
ran in the one in Toronto, and then he ran in this one. But he had this video where he just for the one in Toronto that the Conservatives flipped a couple months ago, where his video is just like him out, being Western Canadian, in a jean shirt, jean jacket, and everything like that. And he says, like the idea is that Toronto needs to quit voting for people from Ontario, and they need to start being represented by people with some good ideas and good thoughts. And then it goes to him, and he's like, "Quit voting for Ontario people, you dorks."
Yeah. What I want to know is there was a guy on the ballot it was his, like, I don't quote his name exactly, but it was like John the Engineer Smith kind of thing, and the engineer was in quotes. So I'm like, that means the engineer in quotes is on his birth certificate. That's awesome. Like,
I don't
bring
think
that guy
it
on the
is, because Granny Mackay she ran for Artur Pawlowski's party in the provincial election last time, and she showed up on the ballot as Granny Mackay.
But with quotes around her name?
No,
Like, this guy showed up with quotes. It was
No.
John, quote, the engineer Smith, whatever. So, like, I was like, wow, okay. Anyways, we're digressing.
Okay, let's get into some of these other questions here. Trish Prue, member for 23 months, says, "Hey, Martin de la Nord, elle does snipping? I don't know how you pronounce that. Remember the flag design contest in 67 of the 9 beavers passing on a frog entry,
Pissing on a frog.
or pissing on a frog entry for the Canadian flag. Great discussion.
is
so
that
far.
real?
Was that a real thing?
You'd have to find that. There was a lot of designs, right? There's like thousands and thousands of designs. That's before my time. I was born in 67. So I've seen some designs. Actually, I'll say this about the Canadian flag. It's a cool design. It definitely,
It's very unique.
It's very unique. It's recognizable around the world. I'm still proud to wear the Canadian flag. People ask me that. I'm disappointed in my country, but I am.
Maybe that's a good question for everybody. Are you
Yeah.
guys still proud to be a Canadian?
No.
No?
No, the only thing that really makes me think like Quebec adds to Confederation, just let me finish. And the only time that I ever thought historically, like, oh, it's nice to be Canadian, was during the Olympics. And that gong show in Paris has really absolved me of that responsibility. And so, like that, because that was the thing, right? You're like, well, we get a lot of good hockey players from there. We get a lot of good Olympians and a few other events. And then every 4 years we get to show up, and it would really hamper our national standing in the Olympics to lose a bunch of these darn frogs. But I don't care about the Olympics anymore. So the one card that they had going for them, they tore up and threw off the table anyway.
No, that's a good point. I mean, people used to say that, I'm going to miss cheering for Canada. I'm like, no, you won't. You'll cheer for Alberta, or you'll cheer for your province if we all go our separate ways. And I mean, look at curling. There's a Team Canada and there's the different provinces. Who do you cheer for when you watch the
Saskatchewan?
I cheer for Alberta. Piss on you.
Fair enough. Dale Tulk, member for 12 months, says, "Hey guys, I mentioned the other day on X that the provinces and territories should separate and become their own republics. Good idea. Yeah, I'm all aboard for that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a good point, is that the type of government that is better than all others by far is a republic, because it basically means a constitutional republic requires that everybody follows the laws of the land, which is a constitution. All other forms of government have descended into some sort of oligarchy. Unfortunately, the U.S. system has done the same, but I think the ultimate point that we need to make here is that all of these problems that we face we are facing because we as citizens failed in our civic duty to protect ourselves and each other from the destruction of our society and by these people that are trying to destroy it, both from without and from within. So you've got an international organization that's trying to destroy all of the nation states on the planet. You've got traitors within the country that are trying to do the same for these bunch of idiots. You got communists that are too dumb to figure out anything, so they just destroy everything around them anyway. And you got radical religious people that are doing the same for their own godly reasons, right? So you have all of these different groups of people, and we have to defend against all of them for us to survive. So it's basically like walking a tightrope and trying to do it with a bunch of people on the tightrope and high-fiving as you're going along the tightrope, right? And just let me finish this.
Yeah.
So if we don't do that for whatever reason, the only trajectory here is to fall off, because all of the things that we've been talking about tonight, they're not getting better. There's no light at the end of the tunnel right now that is like, hey, this corruption problem, immigration problem, Quebec problem, whatever other problem, none of these problems are being solved, right? So they're only going to get worse until either we fix them or they break.
Well, and a lot of these problems aren't being addressed until there's a groundswell of popularity behind them. And like with the Liberals, I had Darshan on this morning to talk about how the Liberals, new plan for immigration it's not doing anything. They're just words. There's no action behind it. They talk about cracking down on bad actors, but there's no crackdown on any of the bad actors in any of this stuff. But at least they'll address it. And if we're going to put forward this much effort to make a change in anything, why not do something that'll change the most amount of stuff? Yeah. If we push for separation and this would really rethink what Canada is on a federal level, this could probably be the effort that would actually do the most amount of change instead of hitting each individual thing with tiny groups of people. I think if we got a groundswell on this, we could make real change.
If the country did break up in the future, how many countries do you think would fall out of it? Like
each one of our
some provinces would have to get some provinces would have to get together, I think.
Okay,
I think some of the prairies would get together probably.
Quebec leaves. Alberta says it's leaving. It takes Saskatchewan with it. BC says we want to come too. We say we don't want the bottom half. And then Manitoba says we want to come too. We say we don't want the bottom half. So that's country 2. And then the bottom half of BC becomes kind of.
We take the territories, probably that group, right?
Yeah,
we take
we
Yukon.
do. We do. We like those people.
I have to skip one and then come back to it afterwards. But one of the questions here is from Easy Joe, said, what will happen to the native land in Quebec?
Choose can address it. So Quebec becomes a country, right?
Yeah. So Quebec's its own country. You've got the Alberta and Saskatchewan, top half of the other one surrounding it. And then bottom Vancouver, bottom Manitoba becomes like the postage stamp province it was to begin with. And then now all of a sudden, Ontario says we can't afford to be the ones footing the bill for every damn thing in the Maritimes.
Maritimes.
So they say we're bailing. and then you got a bunch of people out east saying, Lord Thunder and Jesus, boy, what the fuck are we gonna do now?
Okay, that's good. That's
That's
good.
really good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Jilly Beans with a $5 super chat says, if it wasn't for the government, I'd never get screwed. Okay, I was wondering if I read that right. we're realizing that we're being held hostage by our government. Yeah, absolutely we are.
Yeah. But by basically 3 people. So Trudeau, Singh, and Blanchette are now 3 people that are deciding the course of our government and our country by themselves. And the thing that pisses me off most is that it's very obvious to most people in the country that we want an election. We don't want Trudeau as our leader anymore, and we have no way as a public citizen, as a free citizen, to ensure or to remove our government if we don't want them anymore. And that to me is the biggest defining factor of whether or not you are a free citizen. The Americans, our friends to the south, fought a whole civil war or a war of independence because they're like, hey, you guys are screwing us over and we're done. Right? If we don't have the ability as a free citizen to be like, yo, these guys are stealing from us, they're screwing us over, and we don't want them anymore. If we don't have the power to do that, how are we different from any other authoritarian state?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I totally agree with
You're
that.
absolutely right. Oh, and one other thing about as the country separates into a whole bunch of tiny little nation states is that when Alberta and Saskatchewan leave, they take the name Canada with them. And then a bunch of people are going to push back and say, well, no, you guys are leaving. You can't be Canada. And then they say, listen, you bunch of dicks. You pay the mortgage. It's your house. Pick a new name.
There you go.
But
bring up the question there. Sorry, Clyde, bring up the last super chat. One lady asked about natives. I think.
So that was Easy Joe. He said, what will happen to the native land in Quebec?
I don't know. I think Quebec has negotiated treaties with their natives just like Alberta has. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because like native land is supposed to be its own sovereign nation or whatever. It's like, okay, if that's what that is, then be sovereign.
Yeah, it's always the same question of what happens to, say, Banff and Jasper here. It's like, well, they've already burned down Jasper, so I guess you can keep it. What else?
Oh, man, ouch.
There's no resources in Jasper, so yeah.
Danielle all crew for $5 says Danielle has shit the bed. Time for a replacement in November. We all had such high hopes for her, but unfortunately, her true colors are starting to show. So people are losing faith. People are absolutely losing faith.
And that goes to one of the things Bryce has been mentioning. I do think they're all compromised, man. Like, I don't like. We're seeing it in real time. You know, they get elected and then something flips in them. I'm like, why? Like, why are they flipping? Like, do they hold something over their heads? Like,
like, why did she cross the floor when she was looking down the barrel of being the next premier a decade ago?
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
I think that I think everybody has to understand where the real power in society is, right? I call what we have an oligarchy. So I don't. Somebody else said that, haha, you think you're free. Well, they're kind of right in the sense that we don't actually control our own currency anymore, right? So the true power in society is who manages money, right? Because if I can come to you, and this was a quote from the Rothschilds many moons ago, is that if I control the money, I don't care who makes the laws, because I control what happens with those laws, right? And if I can turn off and on who gets money and who does not, I get to decide who has actual power and who sits where, when, and why, right? And what we're seeing now is that because that system is now choking off our ability to be a free country, because they control various things that happen. Like these policies that are being implemented all over the place, all around the planet, they're not coming from these idiots that are in charge of us right now. They've been handed down these things from powers that be, and they are being implemented on their behalf against us. Yeah. So the real power and the real thing that would be required to have an actual free society is that we would have to kick out the central banks, and nobody wants to have that conversation.
Hey, speaking of sort of that topic, did you see the story today that the Bank of Canada is backing down on digital currency?
Bullshit. I don't believe that for a second.
Like, I never had a chance to digest it, but okay. Yeah, we'll do that on another topic, maybe.
Well, let me just preface. I'll just be really brief about this. But basically, the central bank digital currencies are the final nail in the coffin for total control. So there's four four things in society that they're trying to do. Digital IDs, central bank digital currencies, microchips in your hands, and 15-minute cities. If you have those four things, you are essentially and effectively a slave that you will never be able to escape from. And worse than that, anybody that is a descendant from us, anybody that comes down the line in the future, will not only be a slave as well, they will never even know what freedom is that we've enjoyed for our entire lives.
If you've never had steak, you'll never complain about the ground beef, right?
That interview with the kid in
matrix.
East Berlin where he's like, I don't think this is so bad, and his parents are like, are you kidding?
Yeah. But because that's the ultimate goal. So I don't believe for a second. Basically, what's happened with that is that there's been enough pushback from people like me and lots of others that have been screaming at this. Nobody wants this bullshit, and it's essentially a coup by the central banks of our national currency and national identity and all of the other things. Is that we don't want this, and they had to answer something so that it goes away. Like, oh, we're not doing it anymore. It's bullshit. That is absolutely the plan. They're never going to waver off of that. And the second that we turn away and figure out or look at some other scandal that's happening, to be we'll get it in there. They're not going to give.
It's like gun control. It's like gun control. I mean, gun control. They talked about it in the early '80s, and they're like, no, it's just this little thing. No, people are saying no, you can't have it, and they bring it in anyway, little by little, until you can't have any guns.
When you get right in somebody's face until they tell you to back off, and then you move a little bit closer and closer, and next thing you know, you're right in their face. Clyde, can you show my screen for a second here? So I couldn't find a picture of this flag that the lady was talking about.
So you just made it?
But I asked Brock, and this is what it came up with.
Oh my God, where's the couch?
I know, right?
Man, Grok's getting really good. That's a really good.
Oh, that's really funny.
Oh, it's better. It's better than the flag could have been. I couldn't find an image of the flag, and so I asked Grok to make one.
Oh, that's way too good. Oh, that's way too good. That's crazy.
And then Grok, you just hit the recycle button and don't change the question, but go through the iterations. Just hit that little round circle at the bottom, and then it'll keep giving you it, and it gets smarter as it's trying different things. I've played with it. It's pretty cool.
Oh, it's really good.
It did that. It's thinking now.
Yeah, but you just lost that image forever. You got to save it.
Yeah,
as soon as you hit refresh, it's gone.
Really? Is it? Oh, sorry, man.
You have to snag it off of the stream later. That was just too good. That was actually really too good. Let's get into this.
I don't think I realized how right it was.
Angela Cardoso, a member for 10 months, says, I'm not sure you guys were discussing Canada leaving the Commonwealth. It just came in a few minutes ago, so I totally agree. Leave Crown. Yeah, we did talk about that, and we're unanimous. We all should get out of the Crown. G-Meister for $5 says, constitutionally, Trudeau can wait until 2026 to call an election.
It's end of 2025.
I don't know where that number comes from.
We have fixed election dates now, so it's
he pushed it back by 3 weeks.
He pushed it back. He pushed it back a week to have the pensions vest.
Yeah.
Which
how could you be more transparently corrupt? Be like, hey, we're just gonna make a law to change the rules so that my buddies get more money. Like,
it's a law that benefits 86 people. Like 86 people. Wow.
And this I think is one of my biggest piss offs with the Conservatives is we have been talking all night about the unbelievably long list of absolute nonsense, stupid garbage that is happening in our country. And it's deafening silence. We focus on the dumbest shit.
No, they're not that quiet about it. This is a petition that's happening right now. This is sponsored by the Conservative Party. It's on the conservative.ca website. Scrap the Liberal pension cash grab. It's fine print here. Let me zoom in a bit more. Whereas Bill C-65 is a Liberal MP pension security bill, cynically and corruptly disguised as a elections bill, whereas a clause in Bill C-65 proposes that the date of the next general election be moved back 1 week from October 20th to October 27th, 2025, whereas members of parliament elected in 2019 currently become eligible for their pensions on October 21st, 2025, and moving the election date back by 1 week will make these members of parliament eligible to receive their pensions they otherwise would not be entitled to receive. Whereas the Trudeau government is deeply unpopular, and many Liberal MPs are likely to go down in defeat in the next election, whereas Canadian Taxpayers Federation estimates that the cynical and corrupt pension cash grab by the Trudeau government will cost taxpayers up to $120 million. This is over the years of them collecting this pension. Therefore, we, the undersigned residents of Canada, call upon the Trudeau government to scrap this outrageous Liberal MP pension cash grab. So
here's the problem.
This is something.
Here's the problem with people who live in Ottawa, is that they're a bunch of nerds. Like, you listen to that, you read it out loud, and you're like, you're just losing people. You're losing people a couple paragraphs in, and like everything they're saying is correct, but it's not sexy, fun, exciting. It doesn't catch people's attention, and when people gloss over, they just let it slide. You need to bring the point home in a way that lands.
I should make a video about it, because it is a thing. It is a thing. I just learned about it today.
Can I not post my Twitter handle in the chat? It's not allowing me.
It isn't?
Well, you can type whatever you want. You're showing as your full name.
Oh, you know what it is?
Up at the do.
It's just no. I think they don't allow links in the. Just put your handle, just your @ handle in the chat, and people can find you on Twitter. Just because YouTube doesn't allow links because people put links to like whatever sites, you know.
Stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
well, it was. Yeah. We're again. Never mind. Yeah.
Okay,
so somebody asked.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah. It's letting me. It's letting me tweet or.
No, he means like you can't put a hyperlink.
Well, it also like I put in, hey, you can follow me on X dash my name, and it wouldn't let that go through either. So they're like AI banning that apparently.
What? Yeah, just put your @ in the chat, and people will follow you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something else. Okay, let's get into this. Jilly Beans for $2 says, what does Bryce think of making lobbying illegal? What do you think?
I've actually said that for decades. Actually, I identified that forever ago. So let me see if I get this straight. Okay, I, as somebody in Canada, can pay a bunch of money to an officially to get them to do what I want them to do. By any other name, that's bribery. Why is it even possible to do that at all for any reason? Why can anybody but
I can steel man this?
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I don't know if you've noticed this about politicians, especially in Canada or not, but they're not always experts in everything.
True.
And so the idea that, the pie in the sky, how we originally envisioned this thing, is that they can get people who are experts in whatever field it is to explain to them how things would run better and how they could pass laws that would benefit things and whatever else. Right. And then it gets corrupted from there. But the original idea of saying, okay, well, you know what? I don't know a damn thing about the finer points of supply chain management in grocery stores. Well, maybe I could get somebody from Metro to come in and talk to me. And it just so happens to be Jagmeet Singh's brother. Okay. But that's where it starts is, well, if I've got to be the person in charge of this portfolio that I'm not an expert in, where can I actually find some schmees, some subject matter?
Yeah, but
experts?
they got like, that's the role of the
I'm just saying that's
But that's the role of the deputy minister and then his staff. I mean, they're supposed to have staff and hire people that help them come up with policy. That's one thing. That's the other thing I love about the American system. The president has like his scientific advisory, his space advisory, his God, I'd love to be in the Oval Office when Trump brings in all these guys. That's going to be awesome.
Shut up! You're fired. Get out of here. I'll do it myself.
So I like this. This is a quote from PJ O'Rourke, and they want me to.
Oh yes. So according to PJ O'Rourke, he says continue with Amazon.
Yeah. When buying and selling are controlled by legislation, the first thing to be bought and sold are the legislators.
Exactly.
And this is why I'm against the idea of regulated markets. I think that the government should stay out of the market, stay out of it, because, for example, you get bleeding heart lefties. They're like, oh my God, you shouldn't have, the pharmaceutical companies being able to do all this stuff. Let's put limits on them. Okay. So then the government goes, oh, we got to put limits on them. Who do we ask about this? Well, let me contact my guys over at the pharmaceutical industry. And then they're like, let me help you write these laws. We'll make sure that it's very difficult for us to sell products in the market. Of course, this is how we get to the point where Pfizer is running our government. Is, you know, it's
bribery.
It's bribery. It's all this stuff. And it starts with the good intention. The road to hell is paved with good intentions of, we just need to put safeguards in to stop the, help the consumer. No, we need consumer advocacy magazines and stuff like we always had in the past. They're irrelevant today. You don't hear about consumer advocacy stuff anymore, except
they got rid of that. There's too much advocacy for the.
Oh, that was a great magazine. Remember that Consumer Report? Like if you wanted to look up, before buying a car, you got the Consumer Report, and
that stuff doesn't exist anymore because
that's too much protection for you against the people that are trying to take advantage of us, like them. And just so if I could push back on you too a little bit, the point that you were making is that I get the point that you're making, but what is actually happens in reality is the opposite of that. So
completely agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, can I point out something from the chat real quick? Sylvain Robert, it wasn't a super chat, but he said even the General James Wolfe is magnificent. I completely agree.
Who's that?
James Wolfe did not scale the cliffs on the side of the Plains of Abraham with a cannon on his back to fire on the backside of the fort, thereby ending the 7 Years' War, dying in the battle so that I could have a cereal box with fucking French on it.
Oh, that's a history lesson somewhere in there. Was he one of the guys fighting on the plains, or who was he?
Yeah, he was. Okay. He was the guy.
Oh, hey guys, this is a really good comment. Clyde, can you bring up why not be at 8:21?
At 8:21.
Oh, timestamp. Okay, wow.
Yeah, timestamp.
8:21. That's way back in the timestamps.
That's right now.
Got it right
there.
That
one. Yeah. So this is kind of my ultimate point, and it goes kind of dovetails really nicely with what we were just saying about bribery. So what I was saying about the control of money, this is the epitome of what that is and how it's affecting us, right? So between these companies, they have in excess of roughly 20 to 25 trillion dollars that they control.
Yep.
They own 80% of the Fortune 500 to the degree of 20 to 40% of each one of them. And so they basically dictate, this is where ESG, this is where the woke garbage, these people is where all of this comes from, because they are essentially enforcing these ideologies and structures and policies within the capital markets and within the companies themselves. So when I talk about the oligarchy, this is one of the things I refer to is this is the capital markets of the oligarchy. And this is how they pressure and control companies around the world, because they go into the companies and say, hey, we're an investor now, we want a board seat, we just bought $1 billion worth of your stock, you give us 2 board seats. And now they're in the board seats, so now they push policy, now they make decisions, now the company does stuff that is not in A, the company's best interest, B, the country that they're in's best interest, and B and C, the citizens themselves. And so what we essentially have now, and this is why I call it an oligarchy, is you've got these very, very small group of people that are ultra powerful and wealthy that have this apparatus, this massive multinational planet spanning apparatus to be able to, hey asshole, you said something I don't like, you're fired, and you're removed from capital markets, and now you can't do X, Y, and Z. And so this is what we're seeing with the censorship industrial complex. This is where that comes from.
Okay, I will say, though, that despite the fact that it is literally trillions of dollars, it is a finite amount of money, and they are bleeding it on these woke DEI policies. You've got that steel manufacturer. You've got that steel manufacturer who turned down a $500 million grant to make green steel because even with a $500 million cash injection, it still wasn't economically viable. You've got places like John Deere. As an example off the top of my head, but there's a whole bunch of other ones that are moving away. Microsoft is moving away from DEI policies, despite the fact that they have these people on their board pushing these policies, because they say, even if we can't get the funding for expansions, even if you're going to limit our cash flow, we're still better off not taking this money and wasting it all on DEI stuff that doesn't have a net positive.
Somebody made big news last week by announcing they were getting away from their DEI policy. Who was it?
There's been a couple companies that are starting to fight back, but and this is kind of my point, is that the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way, because everybody is sick of these woke moronic communists, because that's what they are. Anybody that says woke, DEI, ESG, equity, any of that dumb nonsense, whether they know it or not, that is a communist idea, and they are pushing communism whether they know it or not. And so what we finally got to the position of is like, bro, why are all of these stupid people saying stupid stuff, and my life is worse because these idiots are offended about everything, right?
Yeah.
So we're finally starting to see that. Is that like, I'm done. These guys need to shut up.
Yeah, I can understand. I don't know, Microsoft pushing DI, but John Deere.
Oh,
like,
they
come
are.
on, John Deere. Like, who's your core customer, John Deere? Like,
well, they're trying to make John Deere fully electric, bro. And they went.
If I see a pink John Deere
how
combine,
big of a
if I
cord
see
are
a
you
pink,
gonna need? How long of a cord do you need? Right?
yeah. If I see a pink combine in the field, that's it. I'm done. I am done. I'm out of here. Like,
and they went to farmers, and the farmers gave them, hey, how am I going to do X, Y, and Z with this tractor? Because I need to be
farmers
working on my
gave them
tractor.
hay?
I knew that was coming.
So the farmers basically said, hey, how am I going to do these different things? Because I need my tractor to be able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And they said, we'll get back to you, but you still have to take our new tractor, because one of the ways that they operate is you essentially buy into one of their models and you get a replacement. So you're essentially leasing the technology. And so you have to re-up every couple of years. And so if
and
they
you
bring
don't
out
have
a new
the right
model,
to repair.
exactly.
Yeah, there's a
Repair is,
whole lot going on with right to repair laws right
And
now.
Marty, as far as pink combines go, you've never seen a Massey Ferguson from the 70s lately, have you?
well, the old Ford ones that faded in the or who was Ford? No, Ford was blue.
Ford's
Who was
blue.
red?
Massey
Ford's
Ferguson's red.
red. Yeah, the faded red ones in the field would start to look pinkish,
Yeah.
sure, but
I want to show you guys something. You can talk for a sec. I'll just bring it up.
Yeah. Well, it's just to
Okay.
some of these other ones. Utaka with a $2 super chat says, "Move over Diagolon. It's Quebecolon."
yeah.
We got
I like that. I'll be
West
right
Coast
back.
CNC. Oh, yeah, no problem. West Coast CNC became a member. Oh, thanks for jumping in and becoming a member. Twos will be back in just a moment. Penny D with a $5 super chat says, "Bryce, I know that there's so much truth about what you're saying, so just in total agreement with you with that one." Jilly Beans for $2 says the totalitarian tiptoe little by little.
The Chinese
Usually
actually
then
have a name for it called salami slicing. So they'll do a little step and a little step and a little step and a little step and a little step until they get what they want. But that's essentially how all totalitarianism starts and happens, is that they just take a little bit and you say, wow, that sucks, but okay, it's just a little bit. But eventually you get off a cliff and you're done.
We call it
Yeah.
the boiling frog analogy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a little by little, and then all at once. Janice Pollard with a $5 super chat says Alberta and Saskatchewan are originally supposed to be one, called Buffalo. A little history. Oh, okay. I was unaware of that. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Neil from the Hill. I know that name. Hey, Neil, how you doing? $5 super chat says, "Time to become a republic. Leave the Commonwealth now."
Yep.
You won't find disagreement here, Neil. That is
No, sir.
absolutely
Yes, sir.
we're on
No,
board
sir.
with that one. Non-procession. Am I reading that? Precision. With a $20 super chat. Marty is correct on all points, and caution is the game that Pierre has to play as it in Canada because of our population imbalance. We need a restructuring that will never happen without separation somewhere in the equation. And I totally agree with this, and this is the theme. This is the theme and the epiphany that I had. The only way to fix Canada is to break it apart. And the only province that we could start with, forget Brexit, because there's no political will to make that happen just yet.
You mean Wexit?
Quebec. Or sorry, yeah, Wexit, Brexit, yeah. Wexit. The only political will be in Quebec. That's the only way. And I'm not saying that that they should separate because I want Quebec to be gone and I think that they're awful and all that stuff. No, I think they'll be great.
And
I think they'll be great neighbors. I think they'll be excellent neighbors. I think they'll be better neighbors than they are partners in this collaboration that we have going, because it's not
Abusive
working out.
relationship, you mean?
They'll be friends with benefits instead of your wife and dad. But hey,
Like,
just
but
back
I'm
to
tired of them taking everything from us. Like, there's just it's Montreal's known for one thing, and it's strippers.
and hockey.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, but
Interruption.
I wanted to go back to, remember earlier in this when I asked about what that question was going to be next week, that non-confidence. I think Pierre blew it. Pierre should have asked a non-confidence question that should have made the block. You know, he should have said something like, you know, we want to pass.
Oh yeah,
a motion.
at a referendum or something.
Yeah,
like
we
that.
want to pass a motion giving the provinces total right over their immigration, or we want to do something like that and force the bloc to go, oh shit. Yeah, we
Can't
agree
vote
with
against
that. You know,
that.
he can't vote against it. He should have. I don't understand why he picked such a.
It's because he's
he's
on a
he's not
different
astute.
level. He's thinking he's astute, but sometimes he forgets that not everybody's thinking as far ahead as he is. See, he thinks, okay, well, you know what? It's going to be great publicity if we can have the shortest motion in the history of the country passed. It's going to be great publicity, and it's going to be a huge win for us. It's going to be awesome. But he's not taking into account that, okay, well, what happens? It's like in chess. You think, okay, well, I'm going to move here, and it's a great move. But you don't think, well, if I move here, there's going to be a counter move over here, and that doesn't make that a great move anymore. This move over here is better.
So you're saying he's playing checkers
instead of chess?
Yeah. Well, he's playing chess. Well, he's forgetting that everybody else is playing checkers.
Oh, you're giving him the benefit of the doubt. You're saying that he's a step ahead of the game.
But he's further ahead. He's thinking further down the line that nobody else is, and because of that, he's not accurately predicting what his opponents are going to do.
Oh, okay. I thought he was being short-sighted in that. I thought he could have done more of a political play.
Which is a good chess analogy too. Sometimes you're too busy looking 2-3 moves down, and you don't even notice the one that's, you know, you don't even notice the rook right around the corner who's going to take your queen. So you got to be careful. But I'm disappointed. I was hoping there'd be a better, more meaningful, actual question that could be, you know, that would make the parties ponder. I knew there was something weird because they were all saying no, we're not voting in favor. And I'm like, well, you don't even know the freaking question. So they apparently they know the question, and it's a simple one. Wow.
We got another one here with Chi 828. I don't know if I can pronounce that correctly. Anyway, says we combine the power of legislature in executives. Yeah, this is the consolidation of power in Canada.
The judicial.
Yeah, I think it's really important for everybody here to understand, if they don't already know this, that the Prime Minister of Canada is basically a dictator in all but name, because they have so much, the position itself has so much power to remove people, to appoint people, to select people, to create legislation. Like, our system, if it was run by a benevolent dictator, would be fantastic, but we're run by absolute morons that are trying to destroy us. So it's really bad for us.
Yeah, a good guy to bring on this topic someday, Clyde. Maybe you've interviewed him, as Bruce Party. He talked about this at the National Inquiry, the COVID inquiry, as you know, the merging of the executive and the administrative powers, and how it's got some really. His theory is that it, not a theory. His observation is that it bounces around like every 30 or 50 years. You know, we move power through our whole system, and then right now at this time in our history, way too much power is in the administrative side. You know, we're giving huge powers to unelected people.
Non-precisions here says the oligarchy you spoke of pushes DEI. One thing I wanted to add to the DEI thing is I think there's some scams going on with the DEI. I think that some companies, the shareholders are being taken with the excuse that it's DEI, but the CEOs and the managerial staff of these businesses are actually shorting the companies that they're driving into the ground. And here's a perfect example. Well, here's a perfect example. Target. So Target, the CEO and the executives, they go, oh, okay, well, we're going to come out with a new line of clothing for gay kids and transgender kids for a clothing store. Like, it didn't make any sense. They're already down in business. They're doing worse than they've ever done. Projected out to about 5 years, it looks like they're not going to be a brick and mortar shop anymore. And so it looks like the CEOs were like, hey, I could short this business and then drive it into the ground with a campaign called Target Kids. It'll make the news. Everyone will bail out of it, boycott the company. The stock will dip and I'll make a killing. And, everybody in the know makes a bunch of money and the shareholders get jacked.
I've got a meme for that.
I'll be right back. I got to get another beer.
Right, yeah. Talk like that. Deserves a beer.
You bring up my screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this is the essence of what DEI is and why they're doing it. Because you can't. Because remember, the ultimate goal here is to collapse the national currencies to roll out central bank digital currencies, and you can't do that if the countries and the companies themselves are doing well and they don't need your stupid CBDCs. But if you create all of this communist nonsense that destroys the ability for businesses to operate and for people to live in society that are normal and not be offended by everything and all the other dumb nonsense the far left do, well, this is what the sabotage is that you put so many wrenches into the operation of how our society is functioning, it breaks, right? And this is one of the things that have come from that.
Yes, I agree. But the counterpoint, I would go back to the Occam's razor thing, is that most people, what's the it's the paradox or the whatever, where the people who think the people who suck don't realize they suck.
Oh, I know you're talking about this name for that.
But it's hard for people to admit
like Dunning and Kruger.
Yes,
Dunning Kruger. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yes, and so it's hard for people to admit that they're not good at things, regardless of what the things are, regardless of how much time they have or haven't put into it. And it's a lot easier for them to say, the reason why I'm not good at this is because I am a black lesbian, club-footed, cleft palate amputee.
From Saskatchewan.
Yo, you hate speech me, bro?
Oh, let's table the racism for a little while.
Table it, man. Oh, we're going a little too far here.
Yeah, don't be hate speeching over here, bro. You get arrested.
Holy cow, man, we're walking a tightrope tonight. All right, West Coast CNC with $10 says, all governments became corrupt, and if we get change in the next election, it will be short-lived. Now, this is something.
Why my point is we got to upgrade the system, otherwise nothing changes.
Well, and I've been worried about this.
It's removing parts that don't work.
So, like, I've expressed this before, and if you heard this, before, let me know. But my thought is, if the Conservatives get in and if they don't do enough quickly enough, it will have very little effect. Like, it'll have some effect that'll take years for that to come to fruition, but it'll be largely unpopular. And what'll happen is a subsequent election, or even maybe the next election after that, they get voted out for even worse lefties. Like, way worse, promising way more payola to the voter, promising way more largesse in government. And that's exactly what Canada will get. So yes, if the Conservatives don't, like, what we need is a Javier Milei. I really believe this.
Yes,
we need a guy who's going to come in and just, sorry, I know it sucks, you're going to lose your job, but you don't have a job today. You go home, figure it out.
We're not going to pay you anymore. But you're right about Javier Milei. But it's interesting that you're coming from the perspective that the Conservatives are interested in making positive changes, rather than, I would say, my perspective being that the Conservatives are interested in getting power and then maintaining power for as long as possible, and maybe doing things slightly less horribly than the Liberals. To that effect.
Well, then that's the predicament that would wind us up with a worse socialist government afterwards.
Well, and like, I'm curious. Like I never, for me, government is there to make basic things work. Like, I'm always amazed at the bullshit that governments can come up with that they'll make us believe is an issue that needs to be solved, And so, and I look at what we're doing right now and I kind of wonder, like, holy shit, man, will the Conservatives go back to just trying to make things work the way they used to in 2014 and focus on the economy? Or are they also going to get swept up in some goddamn who knows what, right? I mean,
well, they're worried about standing on a third rail. They'll never confront the unions.
So why don't we let's ask the panel here a question, okay? So let's get down to the fundamentals of what is the purpose and responsibility of a government?
Oh, it depends on
Protect
it, like
borders,
the federal
provide
government.
a legal framework for people to seek
transact
justice.
and do
and have a stable market where people can partake in
and perhaps provide a military to protect us against
that's the borders, and then provide a legal framework where people can
bring
have
up grievances,
predictable thing for grievances, and a marketplace to facilitate free trade.
So
free and
for me, the marketplace is the most important thing because that's real democracy. The only thing that will closely resemble democracy to anybody in their actual like day-to-day life and living is being able to choose the products that you want or don't want. And this is a market signal that'll tell entrepreneurs around you, whether it's the grocery store or the businesses around you, what they should be stocking, what they should be providing to you. This is direct democracy. This is the democracy that we want. The government needs to ensure that contracts are upheld. That's a huge thing. They need to ensure that private property is respected and the people's rights are ensured, that their rights won't be infringed. And then, of course, roving bandits from foreign countries, you got to stop that. Those are the three most important things for a functioning society.
Yeah. And I think my point here that I'm trying to bring up is that regardless of where you fall on that spectrum of what the government is responsible for, I think something that we all, universally agree here is that they don't have ultimate authority over our bodies. They don't have ultimate authority about what we do in our society, and they don't have ultimate authority about what they get to do to us. However, we still, in Canada and across the world, have governments and politicians that believe that they are the ultimate arbiter of what's happening, when, where, and why, right? And I think the core thing that this conversation is really proving is that if we as citizens are going to get out from the yoke of these absolute morons, our ability to affect the change that we want to see in the world has to go up, because for all of our lifetime, I think it's been going down. And we have to be able to put in a constitution, let's say, this is the box that you live within. If you go outside of that, you're fucking gone, man.
The rules should go the other way. That's the box they try and put us in, but it should be the other way. Like the conflict of interest breach that the president of that Green Slush Fund, von Finkelstein, was in the parliamentary committee, and they said, "Well, what's the punishment for that?" And he says, "Well, it's exposure. It's not even a fine. It's not even a fine. It's exposure."
Oh, yeah, the other one.
That's the kind of law that you pass,
and they don't care about it. You're
the guy writing the law, planning on breaking the rule later on.
Exactly. I've got a meme for that too. You'll never find justice if criminals are making the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. More of these. Neil from the Hill also adding to the conversation. Quebec will not leave Canada. They can't afford their share of the debt if they separate. Now, I would kind of disagree with that. I'll leave the question up, but I think that once they they don't get transfer payments, which is the main driver for why they haven't utilized most of their resources, they'll jump into those resources. They'll have an industry, it'll pop up, and they'll have tons of revenue coming out of that province. They'll be just fine. I don't see them struggling.
Actually, I told you at the beginning of the show that I did work in Quebec for a while there in 16, 17, 18. And I met a lot of Quebecers who honestly thought that they would be better off separating. Like it was fascinating to have those discussions with them. But They thought that they weren't getting their fair share out of Confederation, that transfer payments were nothing compared to the amount of money they were subsidizing
because
oil
they
industry
pay
and
the
stuff
most into the equalization.
which
They do, but they take out
all of it.
Way the hell more
They
of it,
take
yeah.
out all of it.
Yeah,
And it's interesting when you talk to people from fucking Quebec and they have no idea that the math behind it, and they're just
It's 'cause most
baffled.
people
Like you
don't
sit
do
them down
math.
and try. Well, yeah, I mean, like, is it a language barrier?
It is.
Yeah.
Well, it
how do you say
literally is.
99 in French? It's like 10, 20, or what is it? How do you say it? No, it's ridiculous.
It's 99, which is
420s 19. Like, come on.
Yeah,
I'd be
something like that.
confused too. I'd be confused all the time.
Actually, it's 420s 19. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's a weird. But
is
you're
very
used to
weird.
Japanese, where Japanese is what's 10 or what's 11? It's 10-1, right? And 12 is
10-1.
10-2, 10-2,
Yeah.
10-3. Yeah,
And
yeah.
21 is two tens, one.
Yeah.
So
What's 222?
Well, that's two.
In Japanese. No, get him to say it in Japanese. What's
Yeah.
222
In Japanese,
Yeah.
nihaku niju
There you go.
All right.
All right.
There you
We have
go.
to believe him, right? None of us can.
Yeah.
believe.
Somebody in the chat can verify for me.
Yeah.
Okay, one more time.
Nihaku niju ni.
Holy shit.
speaking Spanish over here.
No, it's Japanese. All right, we're moving on. We've got Kitty Nukes with a $2 super chat says, "Great guests and conversation. Two wings, same bird?" Question mark.
They are, unfortunately.
Hear that
Would-
often.
Yeah, I hear it often.
It's true to a degree.
It's
'Cause
it is
deep
true
state's
to a
been there the
degree.
whole time. There's an administrative state, and then they give us the bullshit of like, hey, go vote for some people that we give you to vote for. Vote all you want, losers.
Well,
See,
yeah, that's true.
What gets me encouraged?
The bird is a shit bird. It's a shit hawk.
What's got me encouraged though is the amount of pushback against Pierre Poilievre. So they do have a huge amount of pushback against him. Not unsimilar to Trump, a little less derangement syndrome. Trump, they hate him because he's anti-establishment.
He's not one of them. Yeah, he's not one of them. That's why they hate him. And this is why, and this is kind of a point that I think needs to be made, because I'm kind of sitting on the fence on this, is that I'm a strategic voter, so I have to vote so I can complain about this shit. But I also don't believe for a second that the Conservative Party is completely outside of the control of WF, because the Klaus Schwabska, that goofball
Michelle
loser,
Rample's talked about it.
Yeah, he has literally said that we have half of the cabinet. And like, they're not going to just be like, well, we took over the Liberals and we'll just leave the Conservatives to do whatever. Like, you got to remember that Stephen Harper was at the WF multiple times. Like, he signed Agenda 21. It's not like the Conservative Party is totally without blame here for where we are right now. And I have to make this point. We had 1,000 tons of gold that backed up our currency many, many moons ago, and all governments have been selling it off to somebody, I probably imagine the Chinese, for decades. So there's no party that's outside of the blame for this. Like, we are where we are because we didn't know and we didn't act and we allowed this to happen.
What party was in charge in 1971?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Probably you got a 60% chance if you
Chance
say
of it being
liberals.
the Liberals.
So the reason why I bring up the Trump thing is because the Republican Party forever
Trudeau
has been
Trudeau's
part of
tenure
that
was in power in
establishment.
1971.
Of course he was.
Yeah, and
So-
he got rid of sedition laws. So, like, to actually try and destroy Canada from within, he got rid of the law that protected Canada against that piece of shit.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I'm fairly seditious. I mean, I'm sitting here talking about how great it would be to break it up into 1 million pieces.
Yeah, this will be illegal pretty soon. They're working on that. Mark my
C-63.
words.
It's almost going through.
But the reason why I brought up Trump in this whole piece of the conversation is that he is anti-establishment, and the Republicans for the longest time, the party's been infiltrated by the deep state, the rot, the establishment.
Look at Nikki Haley.
Oh yeah,
they want. Yeah, that was just pathetic.
loser,
Oh
bro.
wow, holy cow!
The absolute worst, man.
But anyway, like, so there is a chance that you can infiltrate the party with a populist, with somebody who wants to improve, actually make the country great again, you know, with his slogan. But this is what's happening in the United States. They're taking over the Republican Party. And they tried to on the left. They tried to with the Democrat Party, but you know,
With
Gabbard
Kennedy was
threw
the last one on the left.
yeah, Gabbard, Kennedy, they threw the towel in. They said, "No, we're going to go to the other side.
You
'Cause
guys
this is where it's at."
remember Ross Perot back in
I do. Yeah,
in
with
the-
his charts,
yeah,
his
yeah.
pie charts, man. That guy.
Hey,
he's-
just again
he's
on a
real-
weird topic. Did you guys see any of the clips of Kamala Harris and Oprah Winfrey today?
Oh man,
Oh,
they
no.
are
No,
brutal.
no
I
idea.
haven't yet, no.
Save that for do that on your mashup there, Twos. Bring up some. Oh, look, Twos changed his name, aka Nia Kuni Jani.
Yeah.
I actually thought Bush was going to be the dumbest president of all time, and Joe Biden was the most brainless of all time.
It's need
But
you.
Kamala is now like the dumbest person that has ever run for office in
yeah.
the U.S.
Imagine,
Need you.
imagine, like she's being preceded by a guy who got kept alive by a Lazarus chamber for the last 4 years, and she's the second, or she's dumber than he's the second
Yep.
stupidest.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, man. And that kind of shows you how far the U.S. system has been captured. Like the system itself originally did exactly what it was supposed to do: represent the people, maintain the finances, protect the borders, yada yada yada. Be a representative of, by, and for the people. But slowly and slowly and slowly, and it really started 100 years ago when the central banks took over the American monetary system. Is that it's from that time it has gone downhill, and we're suffering from the same problem. And what we're experiencing in our own lives now is the death knells of Western civilization if we don't push back and start going the opposite direction. Because I'll make this point really quickly. What we have coming next year is going to be absolutely horrific. Like that image that I showed earlier about what's happening with the banks. Did I show that? Did I show that picture with the banks?
It was before I got here. If you did.
Okay, maybe that was earlier today. Sorry, I'll bring it up in a second. But what we have coming is going to make 1929 look like a cakewalk. Like the amount, because you got to understand that the entire world's economy right now rests on the U.S. dollar. If that collapses, the amount of pain that that's going to bring is almost unfathomable. The only thing that I can equate it to in history is the fall of Rome.
Well, and the petrodollar agreement expired a few months ago.
In March.
Yeah.
And we're starting to feel that right now.
I better have
So
another beer.
at what point do we have our kick our crates of maple syrup into the harbor moment? Really?
Our
It's
tea
coming
party?
soon.
Is that what you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you bring this up, Clyde?
Yeah.
I want to show this to everybody to really put this into perspective.
Yeah, you got to
This
share.
is-
Yeah.
This
There you
is
go.
coming next year. So this little section right here. So this is basically how much banks have of unrealized losses on their balance sheet. So this little bit right here, okay, that's
Okay,
the
so-
GFC.
Positive is unrealized gains. Negative is unrealized losses. Am I?
Yeah,
looking at
exactly.
that correctly?
So
okay.
yeah. So think about SVB last year, right? When SVB collapsed,
Yep.
that was the bonds that they were holding. They had to sell at a loss because the amount that they were worth was lower than the amount that they paid for them.
Mhm.
To make it simple to understand, right?
Yep.
And so they had to sell that at a loss. They made all of those losses. So those are unrealized losses. A lot of that came from the residential real estate at that time. That's what kind of caused like those CDOs and all the dumb shit that the banks were doing. That's what caused this. Okay.
Bryce,
just
I
real
can't see
quick.
the very bottom.
Yeah,
Like, is that
exactly, exactly.
Is okay.
They're
Time
perfect.
scale.
Thank you.
Got it.
Yeah. So
Me and you, Marty.
Yeah. So that's what happened then, right? And then we have 2018. This was a debt crisis that happened there. They basically fixed this and this by printing ungodly amounts of money. Okay. This is now.
Oh, well done on the slow reveal.
Yeah.
So what this shows you in very visceral terms is when this collapse comes and when it happens, it is very, 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 very bad. And so this isn't financial advice, but I highly recommend that everybody right now, if you are invested in the markets, you look at what your exposure is. And if you have profits, you might want to take them because all of the rich people in the world are selling all of their assets and getting into gold and silver. So I'm just throwing it out there. What is coming is going to be very, very bad. And this shows you in very visceral terms how bad it is going to be.
I just bought a whole bunch of silver.
Good call.
Yeah, and you can go over to New World Precious Metals. Go get yourself some today. Sign up. I've actually even got a link to make things a lot easier for people. Just pause the screen. You can grab that, get a little screen cap, and then bang, get that QR code. Get over there and talk to somebody about what your options are. That is always a good way to start. Anyway, at least just inquire about it.
Yeah, so if anybody doesn't know, I'm working with Clyde, so he's one of our affiliates. I work for New World Precious Metals as a precious metals broker, and we help people get into gold and silver, protect their portfolio. You can do RSPs, registered accounts, international wholesale, or you can get it delivered to your door.
That's the crazy part is that you'll deliver it right to your door.
Gold kind of guy myself.
Sorry?
What?
I said I'm a gold, silver, gold, bull kind of guy myself.
Yeah, they're one of our partners.
Yeah. I'm just shit talking.
Fair enough. I like having
Bryce,
the tangible asset, not
Bryce,
having some gold stock or some.
What's the largest
weird...
gold bullion you've ever held, Bryce? Do you ever come across big ones like?
So they come in a couple different sizes. So you can get 1 ounce, 10 ounce, 5 ounce, 100 ounce, and basically above that is like kilograms. And then there's 12.5 kilogram bars. I've only held a 12.5 kilogram bar once.
What's that worth, ballpark?
About $1 million now.
Wow! So you once held $1 million in your hands. That's cool.
If you guys ever go to the Mint in Ottawa, like it's just down the road from, like, Marty, you probably know where it is, but it's just down the road from Parliament Hill. It's right past the weird spider statue, and they actually have in the gift shop, they've got a gold brick on this bar that can slide up and down so you can hold it for pictures and stuff like that. And it's just held in place with 4 Phillips head screws. One of these days, someone is going to pull off the easiest heist in the world and get that gold brick.
That's hilarious. Why? Yeah. Why would they risk that? $1 million brick of gold.
Probably because nobody in Ottawa knows how to use a screwdriver.
That's a cool place to visit, the Mint. I haven't been to the Mint in a long time, but that's a cool place to. Yeah.
That's where they make coins out of silver-looking material and gold-looking material. Because they devalued our currency so much. They got rid of the penny because they can't make a penny for less than 4 cents.
Wonder how long before we get rid of the nickel. We'll probably lose the nickel in the next decade, I imagine.
Oh, I'd imagine, yeah. And
that shows
it's not made out of nickel.
With inflation, what's the nickel going to buy you?
Nothing. It already doesn't buy you anything, and that shows you in very visceral terms as well how much our currency has declined in value compared to everything else. Because the money that we have is supposed to represent an amount of value, right? If it takes more money to get the same amount of value, it means the value of our currency is declining, and that specifically comes from the unimaginable amount of debt that this absolute moron has been pushed on us.
So, personal story, completely agreeing with Bryce here. I recently sold a rental property that was valued at $275 when it became a rental property, and I sold it for $385. And during that window, $275,000 at the time works out to $355,000 today. And so almost the entire capital gains is inflation. It gained $30,000 worth of actual value and incurred a $20,000 tax bill.
So you got taxed on value that you got taxed away already with inflation.
Right? Yeah. And so, when you look at things to invest in, well, you know what? Gold and silver don't fall under the same tax implications, really.
No, they don't. There's no taxes on precious
metals. So you think like, okay, well, buy land because they don't make any more of it. But the problem is that the amount of money you put into that land, the land requires that much more money to get the same value out of, and you get taxed on the difference because of quantitative easing.
Yeah, the problem with land is it's doesn't trade easily. I mean, whereas gold and silver,
it's not very liquid.
Yeah. Cool.
Let's get back to some of these. We try to get through the rest of these here.
We just keep going all over the place.
Non-precision with a $5 super chat says the ruling class will never allow the Eastern population to be split. Came close under Chrétien. Well, we'll see.
I don't know. I was too young to remember much about Chrétien other than just whenever he was lying, he talked out of the side of his mouth.
Didn't he always do? Oh, okay, yeah, I got your joke.
Yeah,
The last referendum was close, man. Don't quote me on the year. I wasn't living there, but I think the last referendum was like in
50.2%.
Yeah,
no, it was 92. It was 92, and it was like 50.2 or 50.1%.
And there was a historic moment at the end of the night. Like Jacques Parizeau, when he was speaking to the crowd, he turned and he's like, you know, we were defeated by the immigrants. He literally said we were defeated by the immigrants. So actually, I'm going to go find that old clip and post that up there.
It's going to happen again if we don't change our laws.
Yeah.
And kick out the idiots.
Okay,
That's
actually,
something
you know
else.
what? Here's an interesting thing to just a thought experiment. Okay,
Mhm.
All right. So you're born wherever in Canada. You've got to live here for 18 years before you're allowed to vote. It gives you enough time to develop some perspective, formulate your brain around what works here and what doesn't. In theory, being able to make an educated decision about who you think would best represent you. Exactly. So now, would it be wrong to say that if somebody wants to move here, if somebody wants to move from Ontario to Alberta, they've got to live there for 18 years before they can vote. And if somebody wants to move here from Denmark or Argentina or literally anywhere, they've got to live here for 18 years before they can vote.
18 might be excessive, but I could definitely see
at least 10.
A time limit for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think it's also important to tack onto that. How is it even possible that somebody from another country can get into the highest place of power in our country? Because it's a security risk. Like if we have people coming from China and moving here that have been communist and are hell bent on destroying the West,
I mean,
how does that make sense? They can just become part of the government and like be a security risk. It's insane.
I'm on the record as saying I don't even think you should be allowed to be a politician if you're dual citizenship because it's a conflict of interest. So
it is.
Yeah.
Okay, but does anybody have a decent reason why we shouldn't pursue that as a thought?
No.
Okay, I'll humor your idea.
And the fact that they want to go the other way too is they want to lower the voting age to like 16. Like,
that's ridiculous.
I shouldn't be old enough to vote. Even Marty, the wizened beard, the oracle, the guy you've got to climb to the top of the mountain and he just sits there all zen-like. He's not even old enough to vote.
Okay, so my 2 cents on that one would be that, for one, 18 years, that's kind of a hard one because you didn't even know how to speak the language for a few of them. Okay, so it would be a shorter amount of time.
Or immigrants, but
okay, so like let's say until you're 10, you haven't really got sussed out like how anything works. So you get another 8 years, then you get to decide, right? So 8 years. Well, doesn't it take about 8 years to become a citizen in Canada? Like from the time that you've come here?
No.
There's how quick is it?
Yeah, it's pretty quick. You're thinking like the American system. You get the we don't go through the whole landed immigrant and permanent resident.
You got to be a PR for a while, though.
Not very long, man. You can go right to the head of the line and be a Canadian citizen with a passport in under 5 years. Under 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah. They should be around a lot longer than that. I'm on board with that concept. But if you're going to restrict who can vote,
not who you can vote, who can be part of the government. Although I think to your point, I should restrict that.
Well, we're mixing issues. We talked about like restricting.
So if you were going to restrict who can vote, I would say anyone who's a beneficiary of government money.
At the very least, there should be
including
an IQ test for Parliament. Look at this week, man. Like, look at Jennifer O'Connell and Mark Gerritsen are MPs, man. Like, come on. Like, there has to be a test. Like, come on.
Look at how many dumb things Justin Trudeau has said over the years.
Yeah.
Just this week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's an IQ test doesn't necessarily mean that you understand anything. I feel like part of our citizenship should just be like, this is basic economics. This guy's name is Thomas Sowell. There's going to be a quiz.
Yeah, and somebody else made the point. I think it was Vivek Ramaswamy. Actually, he floated the idea of a civics test to be able to get your ability to vote. So you actually have to understand what you like, how things work, why you're voting, like how our civic society actually functions. Before you get a say in
It's a
it.
classic example of American politics where the different parties always want to skew things in their favor.
Yep.
So what I would say though is if you're a beneficiary of any government handouts, you should be exempt from the vote,
Including public service.
Well, yeah, it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah,
screw those guys, bro.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a conflict of interest. It used to be that if you would get a job in government because it's you're sacrificing your ability to make more money to have the job security. Well, now that's not the case. Why? Because those people can vote.
Yeah, voting themselves more money that they get paid. And
Exactly.
I have to remind everybody that they raised our taxes on April Fool's Day, the same day that they gave themselves a raise.
Yep. Yeah.
It's
It's
an automatic thing.
Bring it up, and they'll be
when
like,
was
"Well,
the
I
last
didn't
time
vote
the
for it; it was
conservative-
automatic."
Yeah, well, that's the classic conservative response. When was the last time they said, "You know what? You vote us in, we're going to stop this."
Harper's government stopped it.
We're going to tie it inversely to inflation. We're going to do something where we have skin in the game, where the worse the country does, the less we get paid.
So it was Harper's government. He stopped the automatic thing, and he made it so that they have to vote on it. So then it would become a largely unpopular thing if the parliamentarians were voting for their own pay increases if Canada wasn't doing well. Fortunately, Canada was doing well at the time, so when they did vote their own pay increases, nobody had any qualms about it because it was like, oh, we're just keeping up with inflation. But then when the Liberals came in, they brought back the automatic thing because they probably knew they were going to trash our economy. I don't know.
Well, they knew because like what they've done is essentially being like, hey, this is the way that we're going to do it, and we're going to get paid for it, right? Because all of the deals that the Liberals make, they all get paid on all of these deals. Arrive scam is $60 million for something that shouldn't have cost more than $1 million. And they literally hire two bozos in a basement to be like, hey, just do it like this so that we can sift money. Like there's no other reason to manage something like that.
I don't even
other
think
than taking money out of it.
Yeah.
What do you think Margaret Trudeau was headlining just for laughs in Toronto?
Oh my God.
Like, it wasn't her just going up there and being like, I should be taken seriously, and everybody like, yeah, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Here's your money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All of our politicians and the Conservatives are guilty of this in the past.
Yeah.
Just how government functions is that you have the ability to decide where money goes. You're essentially dictating the flow of cash to various different places. And if you set yourself up as a part of that flow, you're just essentially feeding from the trough of public funds. And if we actually audited any of these idiots, any of them, I bet if we audited all 338, and if anybody failed that ethics audit and we fired all of them, maybe we would have some accountability.
You'd only have the NDP left. You'd only have the NDP left because nobody is going to throw their money at saying like, oh yeah, the NDP, the unserious party. Yeah, we're going to spend a bunch of money giving them sweetheart deals so that when they get into power, we can get our way.
Yeah.
On that sort of topic, I saw a story the other day, like, to get a firearm permit in this country, you need to do a reference check, blah, 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 blah. And somebody posted an article, like literally a third of MPs in Canada right now would not pass the reference check to become a law-abiding firearm owner in here.
Under which part of it would stop them?
Well, they call your spouse and they check references and things like that. I mean, like we're electing cheaters, abusers, people who've bankrupted companies, people who've cheated on their spouses, people who default on their child payments and their alimony payments, and like like if you did a proper profile of the parliamentarians, it's
drunk
not
drivers.
It's not, and they say it represents Canadians. I'm like, in fact, it might actually be worse than the average Canadian. But
wow.
Drunk drivers, thieves, people who piss on sinks while they're going to people who steal campaign signs, all the other crap or whatever. Anyways,
Actually, the guy who pissed. Oh, it wasn't in a sink. He pissed in a cup.
Chandra, whatever his name was. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that guy
He pissed in a
stole
cup. He took a
flyers.
cup in the sink and he
Yeah.
pissed in the cup or whatever.
Yeah.
We're gonna gross out your followers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Penny D just saying, we're just getting to the good stuff, and now it's almost time to go. Thanks, guys.
Oh, is there a time limit or
No, well, no,
supposedly-
I think she's got a time limit. Angela Cordoso at $5 says, so how do we prevent full-on communism from coming to Canada?
Let me take that one, and I'll be quick about this.
Time
So,
machine.
yeah, I wish. Yeah, maybe get Terminator in here. So the core thing that everybody has to realize, and this is universal across all civilizations at all times, is that if you have somebody that represents you and they stop representing you, it's up to you to remove them, right? And I said earlier that we are not going to be able to wait for somebody to come in and swoop in and save us. We have to be a part of the change that we want to see in the world. That old quote, right? And it really comes down to what you in your community, your physical community, because remember, everybody here, you're in a physical community somewhere with physical people around you. You're part of a community, right? And if that community says, we're not getting represented by these people, they got to go. Nobody else is going to do that for you, right? So it is incumbent upon us. We know this shit is coming. And if we don't do what's necessary to stop it, we get what we deserve.
Well, I'll say something a little more pragmatic. I just spoke about it. Get your firearms permit and buy a handgun or a firearm. Make sure you are armed. It's. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not joking about that. Most countries, the first thing the communists do and the Marxists and whatever is they disarm the population. So don't let them disarm you. That's it.
Yeah,
skills,
don't let it happen.
Skills.
Oh
yeah,
and community.
And
that is what we need.
Get a boat and lose all your guns.
Yeah.
Have a voting accident. Unfortunate voting accident. Sorry. I can't. I was gonna do the.
Hey, did you see the story? The RCMP where somebody uncovered today.
The
RCMP lost 212
guns. 205
in the
guns
since
in
2000. The last 10 years. Yeah.
So let's talk about guns for a second, okay? I say this a lot, and it makes this really easy for everybody to understand, okay? So whenever we're talking about guns, there's only three groups of people in society, and that's the government, criminals, and citizens. So make me an argument at all that it makes sense for one of those groups, the citizens, to be disarmed and at the mercy of the other two groups.
Right.
That is
awful.
Insane.
Good point. Very good point.
Because the criminals.
I think you guys are answering. I think you guys are already answering the next super chat. Neil from the Hill saying, "Okay, gentlemen, how do we fix this?
Well,
what do we
Neil
do
got
now
the background,
here?"
obviously. If Neil was in the military, he understands this, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to touch on what you were saying, Bryce, because you're absolutely right. The main argument that gets presented in terms of gun control for law-abiding citizens is that it presents an opportunity for the criminals to steal the guns.
Yeah.
Now, if the RCMP is losing a gun a week, where's the incentive? Like, if the RCMP is losing a gun a week,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Why should we care about our guns being the potential?
Or my other favorite argument is you don't need to. Yeah, or I like the people who say you don't need to protect yourself. The RCMP will do it for you. Really? Try and dial 911 where I live and see how long.
Crime is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And
actually, it's the old expression, when seconds matter, the police are only minutes away, right?
Yeah,
you need to be able to help yourself.
And to those people, I say, well, by the same logic, why would I have a fire extinguisher in my house if I can just call the fire department?
Exactly. Very good analogy.
I'm still allowed to have a fire extinguisher, so I might as well have
perfect.
Yeah.
But I want to make this quick point too, is that it actually gets a lot worse than that, right? Because so I just outlined these three groups, right? So take this to the next level now and say the government is going to say that, hey, citizens, you don't get guns anymore. However, I'm going to take your money, give it to another country on the other side of the planet so they can buy guns for their citizens and defend their borders, but you're not allowed to. But I am going to take your money to do it.
You mean
Did
like
you remember when Ukraine was first invaded and they were saying
AR-15s to Ukraine? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we
They
just
didn't.
sent
They
them,
didn't have any weapons at first.
we
There
just
wasn't
sent
enough
them-
rifles around. They were handing out sorry, it was cutouts of plywood that was painted black that looked like rifles, so the guys could run around looking like they had rifles.
You're
It
neighboring
was
Russia
bad,
and you don't have guns?
Yeah.
apparently.
The Ukraine was the biggest military. Like the West has been preparing this for decades. They've been training the Ukrainians, and they were one of the biggest militaries in Europe. Now they're
Yeah, but the
second.
citizens didn't have any.
No, but this is my point: is that they've been training the military, and after the military got obliterated, they're like, "Hey, everybody else, you need guns now, even though you're not part of this war, and we're totally destroying your country. Off to the front line you go."
When Nicolas Cage did that movie Lord of War, wasn't he getting guns from Ukraine? Is that where he's getting him, or he's getting him from?
don't
That
one
was
of
a
those-
true story, wasn't it?
It
Oh yeah,
was.
for sure.
It's based
Oh, yeah,
on a
but-
true story.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other true story he did was the one where he stole the Declaration of Independence.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we got another one from Trish Prue for $6.99. Says, if you need a good laugh about DEI, check out Am I Racist by Daily Wire. It shows the grift. Cineplex is showing it in select theaters.
I wanted to see that last week, but I didn't have a chance to.
I think
I haven't
I'll go
had a
this weekend.
chance.
Yeah.
I was
yeah.
listening to him on Joe Rogan before the podcast tonight. Only caught the first little bit of it. It sounds really good. And
Marty,
it's-
you wanna go
it's- It's a
tomorrow?
comedy movie. It's a comedy movie.
I'll
and
see
that's
what
a-
Mama's
yeah.
doing. I
It's a
could do. I could.
mockumentary.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll
Think of
take
it
it
like
offline.
Borat.
I can't believe they actually got the author of White Fragility to go along with it
For
Yeah, she actually gave
$15,000
reparations.
for $15,000.
plus the $30 she gave the
Is
black
that the one who
producer.
is that the lady who was talking about the Disney princess and all
Yeah.
that?
Oh,
or-
no, that was a different one.
She's the one who got started. She started the whole idea of white fragility and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of this stuff.
White guilt is retarded bullshit.
Some white lady
Hey,
professor.
and
yeah.
one of the things that you guys can use, so if you are white, you can use this, is like, hey, I thought you cared about minorities. Do you? You care about minorities? Yeah. Well, I'm a minority, bro. I'm a white person, okay? We represent less than 8% of the global population, so I'm the biggest minorities. You guys can all fuck off.
Also, why is it that white always gets grouped together, but like Asian, it all gets separated, right? You've got the Russians and the Chinese.
It's because we all look.
They're all Asian. They're both Asian. We want to stop anti-Asian hate, except when it comes to the Ukraine conflict.
Hey, let's not devolve too much.
All right.
I think that's a little late.
Non-precision says, "Welcome to the '80s, boys." Absolutely. Jilly Beans with a $5 super chat says, "Federal government should be for foreign affairs and defense, military. That's it. Let the provinces run themselves and the transfer payments." Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Angela Cordoso also adding, one of you needs to run in government. Well,
Only if
I'm
we can
gonna say
upgrade the
not
system
me.
from this
Not
garbage.
No, not me. I'm too
I'm a
colorful.
I'm a
I
dual
would just-
citizen. I wouldn't get the approval from these
Marty
guys.
Marty
Yes,
would
that leaves
definitely
me,
be running.
benevolent dictator right here.
But I mean, I'd get
Yeah,
up there.
and then because I like to hold people accountable, I'd suddenly have to turn against you and hold you accountable, and it'd be all messy. So let's stay friends. Yeah,
Yeah, let's stay
I mean-
friends.
Nothing I say would ever get anybody to vote for me. Everything's fucked and everybody's screwed.
Yeah.
Vote twos.
Well, that's how Trump got in. Penny D with a $5 super chat says, "Thanks, Clyde, Bryce, Twos, and Marty. Marty, you always have a special place in my heart. Marty, you getting
that's
singled out."
sweet. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Benny.
Neil from the Hill also adding, the USMC article 27.3, chapter 27, anti-corruption. I don't know that.
I don't know
Basically, what it's
particulars.
referring to is that part of their articles of their office is to protect against corruption.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh,
It's-
wouldn't
so
it be
it's
cool
part-
if our military had that? We
I
could
know
just
what
throw
a concept.
tampons at
That it's
Trudeau's.
literally your job to protect against enemies, foreign and domestic, because that's part of the American military. Is that you're supposed to be able to you're able to refuse an unlawful order. Your job is to protect from enemies, both foreign and domestic. And it even says in the Constitution, if your government gets tyrannical, Overflow it, and reinstitute a non-corrupt government.
Actually, that was the theme of a recent movie. Did you guys see the movie The Beekeeper with Jason?
Oh no, I didn't. Is that what that's about?
Yeah, that's what it's about. He's a
No way.
he's a beekeepers, or if the queen becomes
Like a secret
compromised.
society sort of
Yeah,
thing.
it's a secret
okay.
And
society.
there's a lot
The
of
queen-
bee puns and bee
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
and it's a classic bee movie.
I love it. West Coast CNC
Oh,
with
I've
a
been
$5
kicked out of
super
the
chat says, "We need the smallest possible government while still maintaining a civil
Yes.
society."
I would
agree.
say slightly smaller than that, but yeah, it's more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to keep it colorful. It's not fun otherwise.
So I gotta go in about 10 minutes, FYI.
And what's that?
I gotta go in about 10 minutes, FYI.
Oh, I'm trying to wrap up these super chats. We just
Alright,
keep
shut
going
up,
off.
Shut up, guys.
Angela Cordoso, the $5 super chat says, "When I became a citizen in 1997, I had to take a test before I got sworn in. Don't know whether you still need to take a test now. I don't know."
Yeah, they still do. Tariq is one of the friends of ours who most recently became a Canadian, and he said he had to take a test.
Yeah, my girlfriend just, 2 years ago she became a full citizen, so she had to take a test.
Got to respect
Tariq's the kind of guy you want.
Yeah,
in the
you got to know
country.
the pizza phone number. What's the pizza phone number, guys? Come on, quickly.
310
What is
10
it?
10. No, that's
9611
Pizza Hut.
96.
No, 310 10 10 is pizza 73. Come on. Let's try and have a
Oh,
serious
wow.
conversation here.
I thought they would tell you civics and stuff like that. Pizza.
Have you ever had
Angelina,
yeah, you've had Derek on
Angela
here before, haven't you?
Cordoso also saying, "Thanks, guys. I got my gun license and guns." Okay,
Good for you.
Okay,
Good for you. Yes.
Good.
Yeah, Clyde, you've had Tarek on here before, haven't you?
I've had who?
Tarek?
Tariq.
Tarek.
Tariq.
Yeah.
Tariq?
No, I haven't. I've been meaning to have him on, and then just hasn't happened yet.
You should have him on yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I remember
Yeah.
meeting him in Calgary. He's what a dude.
Oh, that's where we met. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to have him on the show because he's a champ. For people who don't know, he's from Dubai, and he had
His trajectory to becoming a Canadian is very unique. It's very unique.
The world was his oyster.
Stampede. He showed up at the Stampede and said, "This is awesome. I'm gonna do this," and just sold everything in Dubai, moved to Canada, and became a Canadian citizen. And then he just placed sixth in pro
Calf
rodeo
roping.
for team roping as a healer.
Yeah.
So not calf roping, but team roping
team
in the
roping.
healers. Yeah. So I mean, the
That's
guy's
crazy.
just living the dream. Like he's the poster child of everything you think somebody in Western Canada ought to be.
Good
But
looking
anyway.
like me.
And from his house, we can throw beer cans at Tu's place, right over the
Well,
fence. I can
yeah,
fly my
we're-
drone from his place to your place. I think.
We're practically neighbors. Like I
Yeah.
could, if I could lose my slice, I could probably hit a golf ball into his yard.
I love this comment. Big West Lawn Care says, "Have him on or you're racist."
Yeah, get canceled, Clyde.
Oh, that's too funny. Okay, so we did a poll. I'm gonna end the poll here in the chat and have a look at the results of this. Should Quebec be kicked out of Canada? It was the question. Yes, with 81% of the vote. No, only got 18% of the vote. The poll completed with 390 votes. So
Pretty good.
Nice. I like.
I
it.
think there's a sway in one direction. It looks like with the audience of this channel.
You know, I like the fact that it's not should Quebec leave. It's should we kick
get
those
kicked
fucking
out,
guys
yeah.
out?
Yeah, you've used that card enough times. It's like somebody like, "Hey, I'm gonna leave. Like, you know what? You're leaving now."
Yeah, there's only so many times you can hear it before you're like, all right, get out then, go.
Yeah.
Oh,
But, I mean-
I just have a few things. No, out the door.
Yeah.
But the other side of that coin, though, is when it comes to Western Canadian separation, like there's more or less three outcomes that are going to happen. Is outcome one is that there's a sovereign nation, however it gets laid out. Outcome two is it becomes part of the United States, like the way Puerto Rico is, but even though it's not a state, but it's part of the United States. Or outcome three being that when there's 1 foot out the door, somebody in Ottawa says, whoa, wait. Like,
Just give you more stuff.
if we were to quit being dicks, would you guys be interested in sticking around? And you say, well, what would that look like? It'd be like, hold on a sec here. Let's talk about this, right? Because that's the only way meaningful change is going to happen, one way or the other, is if we're right on the cusp of walking out.
Yeah, I agree.
Stop. Jilly Bean says, "Stop threatening us with a good time."
That's what separation would be in a nutshell.
That would be.
She's not a Quebecer. I wonder if you got a mixed audience. I'm looking at the comments. You do have people from Quebec listening tonight, and and they support actually. They're in favor,
which is
so the Quebecers want to leave.
Like I'm impressed.
I think it's a great idea.
Like almost nobody from Quebec listens to anything I ever do in terms of podcasting, and I'm not sure why.
I'm not sure why. So I have been criticized from people for my takes on French Canadians and French Canada and all that stuff. But I mean, I don't feel ill will towards Quebec. Like this is with all due respect. It's one of those. It's like, with all due respect, Quebec and Canada just not working out. Like they should be separated. I think that the relationship.
It's you.
Yeah.
No. This is how I work. This is how I word it often. I often tell my friends, I said, I love Quebecers, like individual Quebecers that I've met.
Absolutely.
Love almost all of them. The province, not so much. Like I don't like the province.
Yeah, welcome to
and actually, and truthfully, I can almost say the same thing about a lot of other provinces. I'm not a big fan of British Columbia.
I can say that about most governments on the planet, bro. Like,
I love British Columbians. I don't like British Columbia.
See, I'm kind of with Clyde on this whole thing, but not exactly. Like when you say it's sort of like with all due respect, yes, I'm absolutely in that same boat when I talk about Quebec, where it says with all due respect, but I'm kind of on the Ricky Bobby side of things when you talk about with all due respect.
You're gonna have to enlighten me because
where he's talking to his boss and he's like, well, with all due respect, you're a fucking idiot. And then the guy's like, you can't just say whatever you want.
You can't just preface it to make it sound good. Yeah, got it.
Like,
Let me stop in the flow
here.
Respect. That's too funny. But just before there, Neil from the Hill was with another super chat, says Article 27 is not just an American thing. USMC NAFTA can remove our government.
That's what he was talking about. Okay,
I get it. I didn't understand. I guess.
So NAFTA is an economic agreement.
Right.
Yes,
the
North American Free Trade Agreement.
Yeah.
And under that, there's an obligation from the respective militaries to fight back against the tyrannical government.
I'd have to see more into that. I'd have to see more into that. We also have one from Scott, real generous with the $69.99. Says, if we could just stand up to Trump, eh?
Yeah, if only. I almost got that guy 4 years ago.
Thank you so much.
So that reference is for Freeland, that when she stood up the other day, she's like, I actually stood up to Putin and I stood up to Trump, and everyone's like, what the fuck?
Stand up to him? Like, what?
Yeah, like you stood up to our ally and you're actually terrible at negotiation. When did you stand up to Putin? You're just giving us a whole bunch of our money and military to the Ukrainians? Like, what are you talking about, bro? She's insane, man.
Yeah. Well, Scott, thank you so much for that super chat. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's
somebody
talked about how Freeland had been investigated when she was a journalist in Russia, and you're like, okay, but like, don't they investigate every journalist? That doesn't really make you special. That just makes you literally one of everybody there.
I just learned something right now. I just Googled it. USMC is not United States Marine Corps. It's U.S. Canada Mexico Agreement.
Oh,
so
that was another.
It's just another acronym for you know.
And we just assumed because of the picture that it was Marine
Corps. Yeah. No, so it's not a military thing. It's just okay. Cool.
Here, you can share my screen for that reference for Freeland.
Yeah.
So I actually saved this. Thank God for Twitter. So
this
is basically
Freeland. We've all seen that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. For everybody that didn't, she got arrested in Russia by the KGB for being a socialist, essentially.
Yeah.
That's not the flex she thinks it is.
I know. She's an idiot, bro.
Well, in the article, they're calling her a badass and all that stuff. Or
Yeah, like
it,
started.
yeah, no, it's not a
Mr.
badass.
Speaker. God, I can't.
Oh my god!
Every time she opens her mouth, bro, it's just she oozes
Yeah.
arrogance and stupidity
Yeah.
every time she speaks.
When she said, "I'm not going anywhere," I was, oh God, no. No.
Worst.
What's worse though, Mark Carney?
Okay,
well,
but that
um,
doesn't.
Practice. Like at least
Okay.
you don't, your eyes don't bleed listening to him.
Okay,
Yeah,
but at the same
they
time,
will just in
with
Oh, he's
Chrystia
worse, for sure.
Freeland, she doesn't just try and run billions of dollars of sweetheart deals her first weekend. She at least
Yeah.
kind of takes her time with it. She serenades you.
Steal $2
She
billion.
eases you into things. It's not
Yeah.
like, hey, all right, so I haven't even got my ass. I haven't even got the ass of this chair sweaty with my butt yet, and already I'm trying to get $10 billion for not Berkshire, but or is it Berkshire?
No, it's
No,
Brookfield.
Brookfield.
Thank you.
Brookfield. Yeah.
Thank you.
10
The-
billion
the
out of the.
punchline- The punchline would have been much better if I could have stuck the landing. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, you'll get another chance, I'm sure.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming to the show tonight.
my
Stick
pleasure.
around. I'm just gonna finish the stream here. You guys all for coming out as well to the stream. Thanks for joining in, having this conversation with us. I knew this was going to be a contentious one, talking about Quebec and their separation. They threatened to do it twice already. Let's make it a thing. Let's actually make it a thing this time.
You got to call their
from
bluff.
from the rest of Canada. I think the rest of Canada should encourage it, and I think we should all be on the same page. Quebec should be its own country. I'm on board because I think it's the first step for Canada to move in the right direction. Thank you all for joining and participating this evening. We'll see you all on Monday.
Thanks so much, bro. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot. Thank
Good night,
you very
guys.
much for having me.